Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since our last county commission meeting, our country has experienced one of the worst acts of violence against Jewish people in our country's history. Before we begin our meeting this evening, let's hold a moment of silence to acknowledge the lives that have been lost from this act of violence, hatred, and discrimination, to offer a silent prayer for the families impacted, the community of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and people of Jewish tradition and faith within our community in Asheville and Buncombe County and across our country. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, before we begin our meeting, I'd like to announce that there is parking validation for folks who are attending our county commission meeting. If you parked in one of the county parking decks, you can get parking validation from the sheriff's officers who are with us. So please talk to them on your way out if you would like to get a parking pass, or if you used public transit to get here, you can also get your transit pass validated as well. See a couple of other local elected officials and other public figures with us this evening. Mayor of Black Mountain, Don Collins, and several folks from our school board, Cindy McMahon and Pat Bryant. Leanne Melton, our public defender, thank you for being with us. And Dr. Denise Patterson from the city schools. And I'm sure I'm missing folks because we've got a pretty full house here this evening. But thank you all for your public service, and thank you all for being with us in the county commission meeting this evening. Let me read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the code of ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? Seeing that there are none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the board at this meeting. All right, we come to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda and to follow the remainder of the agenda as published?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, we come to good news, and want to invite Michael Woods to be with us to talk about 101 Kids. Mr. Woods, thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for...
And Mr. Gene Bell, thank you for being with us as always.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, thank you for having us. Gene's actually passing out some thank you cards that are to you, to each of you all from the kids, and we wanted to make sure that we put those in your hands as a way of saying thank you. Not sure how. There we go. I'm going to just share some pictures while I'm talking about some of the great things that have taken place. But before I actually do, I really want to acknowledge the chosen group, some community just leaders that just decided to rise up and to be a part of this. And we're excited about the momentum and about the things that are taking place within the community and within our kids. And so there's a lot of folk here. We have some of the kids here, and so just really wanted to be able to say thank you. Because of you all, we were able to send. We started out with 101 kids, and the thought was that we wanted to be impactful. We wanted to be able to affect kids, and we reached out and had a great amount of support. We ended up sending a total of 89 kids, and 9 youth workers ended up going to Kids Across America, and it was a phenomenal time. It was right outside of Branson, Missouri, where they were engaged. Kids had a phenomenal time, and when they came back, we decided that we were going to continue with those kids. And just almost 2 weeks ago, we did our impact retreat, where we had another 89 kids, or some of the same kids, for a total where we've impacted 124 individual kids from our communities. People ask me all the time, where are you finding the kids? Because we're getting so many calls, and we're engaging with the schools. We started out partnering within the Housing Authority, partnering with Helpmate. We got kids from Buncombe County schools and Asheville City schools, from the homeless liaisons. We got involved with some youth organizations. My sister taught me that, my daddy taught me that, YTL, and just really went after these kids to be able to let them know that there's a community that actually cares and we believe in them, and it has been phenomenal. It has been one of the greatest things I've ever been involved in, and so I wanted to make sure that we properly said thank you, and to be able to come and to let you all know the impact that you're having and allowing us. And there's a lot more of us that are moving forward with this. We have more events planned. We're every Monday, there's a group of us that are moving from school to school, that we're greeting kids when they're coming in. We're shaking hands. We're doing this, and we're going all over the county. So literally almost every school in the county was actually had a student represented in one of our camps. And so we're so excited about not only what took place, but what's going to take place. And so I just want to say thank you.
I want to say the thanks should really go to all of you, because, we sit here, but what you've done with this innovative program is planted a seed of hope where sometimes there aren't any. So I humbly want to thank you all for doing it.
And again, thank you. I would like to say, I'm just the guy standing here. I mean, I really would like for the chosen members to just stand
And,
for me, because I really want, they, I mean, we are doing something weekly, constantly. I mean, there's groups of us that are going to elementary schools and having lunch with kids. We're doing something. We're making sure that that these kids know that they matter and that they're important and they're valuable. And the biggest thing that we can give is our presence, and that's what we're doing. So again, thank you all.
So I want to thank you also. It's heartwarming. It moves every part of you when you hear news like this. And there was an investment that the county made.
Yes, thank you.
And I hope you come back and ask again.
Yes.
Because the results are there. I love your shirts being chosen when you go out and choose someone, and it means that you hunted them out and that they were important to you. And you told them that they matter, and that message needs to go out to a lot more kids, and not only in Buncombe County but across this country. And I'm glad that it's starting here in our little part of the world, and I hope your message spreads all over, because it's one of hope, and it's what they need. And thank you for doing it. Thank you for all of you taking your time. Maybe it's a big deal to take all that time and go to Branson, Missouri.
Yeah.
When I went to Missouri this summer with my grandson, it takes forever to get there.
And again, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things that 100% of all the funds that have been raised from the county and from other sources have gone directly towards the kids. Everybody's volunteer,
Hey,
and we're using all of those resources to be impactful. And again, I want to say thank you, and thank you so much.
All right. Mr. Woods, thank you. To everyone involved, great job, and we appreciate you guys very much. Thanks so much for the great update. Okay, next up we have a presentation on the Children and Friends Enrichment Center, and this is an informational presentation. Linda Hobson, the board chair, is going to share some information with us. We do not anticipate taking a vote at the meeting this evening, but we're going to get some additional information, and so thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Would you give me a minute to make sure I know what I'm doing here?
Sure. We all have to make that work sometimes. All right, good job.
Children and Friends is located in Black Mountain. I am delighted that you are willing to listen to us and our critical need at this particular moment. Well, we partner with our families from birth to age kindergarten, and we have a very diverse group of people. We provide a loving and warm environment in which all children can thrive and be successful learners. Well, shoot. If it's technology, it's going to
There
be
you
my
go.
fault. Okay, presently, we can only serve 70 children. We have 6 classrooms. We have a staff of 15 people, and we are very proud to have a 5-star rating. Unfortunately, we have a major crisis at this point at Children and Friends. Our building is wearing out. It has flooded 4 or 5 times this past year, and the sewage system went out. This is a great hardship for our families, and financially and emotionally, it's not good for them, and it's not good for their employers. We face always the possibility of mold contamination. We very much are aware of the shortage of good quality child care in Buncombe County, and we want to be a part of that. We do not want to close. For that reason, we For that reason, and these are pictures of the flooding when it occurs. You can see it on the playground. You can see it in the windows. That is not wax, that is water that you're seeing that's so wonderfully shiny. Because of this crisis, we are also located in what probably is ground zero for the Blue Ridge exit off of I-40 that will be built in several years, and the property will probably be taken for that. We want to be proactive. We do not want to close, so we are working on a modular building that would accommodate 100 more children than we have now. It would be very close to Avidem and the new industrial park and the I-40 exit. The best thing about it is we do have land for this modular building to go on through a partnership with the town of Black Mountain, a long-term lease. So we have land. Now we have to have money. Currently, we have raised $180,000, and we're still working on that. We plan to take an SAB loan for 120 months, $3,237 a month. That is doable. Our current rent is almost $5,000 a month. We're asking from the Board of County Commissioners a one-time commitment of $220,000 to help us pay for this. We very much want to be part of the solution for good quality child care in Buncombe County. We do not want to close. At this point, I'm going to ask the Honorable Don Collins, Mayor of Black Mountain, to come forward.
Thank you guys for allowing us to come and speak on behalf of children and friends. As I know that I don't need to tell you guys what kind of problems that you have for early childhood education and folks to take and families who need access to good care, good quality education, good quality child care. And these guys do it, and I'm proud to come here and speak on their behalf because I know what they do, and I know how there are a lot of these folks were the same folks who were involved in the town square who took a little bit of money from the county and turned it into a lot, 10 times what the county got it started off with. We have a backlog now, or they do, and that backlog is only going to get worse once Avadem gets started, and you guys have been supportive of that. The need is tremendous, and we appreciate y'all considering and your willingness to possibly help us. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for your consideration of a possible grant for children and friends.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
How long is your waiting list now?
Long. There is a great demand for infant care. We have babies who would like to be on our waiting list before they're born, but we find that we have to take it as a first come, first serve. So we have a long waiting list.
And it's my understanding the town gave you all land?
We have a lease agreement with the
Right.
town, a long-term lease for use of the land. The beauty of the modular unit is we can drop it into that site and we can be up and running probably in less than a year from the time that we signed the contracts.
And it's my understanding the site is at the community garden and the Black Mountain
Yes.
Park.
What better place for young children to be roaming around than in community gardens?
I'm going to give a little pitch to you all. It's on top of a hill, this beautiful location, and really volunteers come winter, spring, summer, fall, tending the garden, taking care of things, frisbee golf. It's the best environment, and kids would be lucky to go.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Let me turn this on. One is, have you approached Avadem about
Yes.
helping?
Yes, they were the first people we approached about being, sharing some of their land. They did not have enough land to share with us. They will be one of our partners in education.
So are they a donor?
They will be.
Are they contributing annually, or is that,
It has not
or
been
can
wor-
you even tell?
It
tell
has
us?
not been worked out yet. At this point, they are very much busy and have their money invested in constructing their buildings.
Okay. The other question is, what's the square footage on your modular building?
56,000 feet, 5,600 feet. It would meet all the state regulations for building codes and for young children.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can you, I don't know if everybody knows, can you kind of briefly talk about how you started with what you all did with the town square, that little bit of money, and how much money you all raised?
One of our board members was very active in the development of the town square, and we are very grateful to have him on our board, John DeWitt. He has brought to our board many skills and resources, and John knows how to take money and rub the sides off of the buffalo nickel to get the most out of it.
And with the town square, wasn't a lot of the labor volunteers?
That's my understanding.
Maybe the mayor could talk about, because I don't know if everybody knows all that went into that. Why I bring this up, it's a very similar community project.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Frost, that is correct. The county gave us a small portion to get started with. We turned that into $50,000. We turned that into 10 times that from outside resources, people donating their time, their efforts, their materials. We got parking lots done for free. We got rock work, framing, roofing, plumbing, wiring, heat and air. It was just so much of the development of that square was done, and it didn't cost anything above what the county gave us on the $50,000. We've got over $500,000 involved in that project, and what y'all gave was just seed money to get started, and we took it and went from there. And this is going to be another example of that. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm advocating. That's why the whole town board is in support of this, is because we know that we can partner with these guys to do what's right and good for our kids.
Well, and that's part of the vote for the small amount of money you got done.
Yes, sir.
The
you were.
$50,000, Mary. I could not believe it when I went out there. I thought we'd see a little bathroom and, some gravel in a parking lot. But then I was here, you got Splash Mountain, you've got it all. You got a clock, you got all kinds of things for what you've done, and the people of the community. That's what I call it. It's the people of the community that help. And I think they will help this group get to where they're going. And I understand, I've understand a little bit about these modular deals. They're set up for the kids to start with, and it will be a great benefit. But $50,000, and that's District 2, and that's pretty well that, and we haven't given other money to the swimming pool yet because it's not done. So, I can't see where we can hurt in this particular deal because it's a one-time deal you're asking for.
Yes, sir.
And so,
Well, thank you.
but thank you for what y'all have done out there, Don. As a group of aldermen and a mayor and the people that stepped up, what a fantastic job for one small town. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've got a couple comments and then I'll hush. But when I look at this, for me, this is a way that I like to approach child care in Buncombe County. You have a specific need. You've come to us. You have presented, in a very tangible way, what your requests are and what your needs are and what the results have been in the past. And we know you can take this money and multiply it. And so I'm not sure when and, the timing of all this, but, and where we end up on the amount, but I am very, very supportive of this. I will ask a question. The amount is, I think you said $220,000.
$200,000.
200,000, okay.
But we'll take 220.
I bet you would. That's the right answer there. But I want to ask the timing of this, because we got this budget cycle coming up, and then we got the next one. So what I'm, wondering is, and I'm not recommending this, I'm just asking, is it possible to have, $100,000 now and $100,000 in the next cycle? Because you've got a lot of work to be done, and I'm wondering if there's and I'm not expecting an answer. I'm just kind of throwing that out for.
But an answer is good, too.
If we can get an answer, it's good.
It would be helpful if we could have the 200,000 at one time, but our need is so critical, and we want so much for the children of Buncombe County to have good child care that we would work any way we could to make it happen.
And let me tell you why I asked that, okay? Because I see two requests here that total $200,000, okay? I see property site preparations for $100,000
Right.
at the beginning. And then I see supplies and furniture of another $100,000, which I assume would be at the end.
Exactly.
So that's kind of why I asked the question of splitting it up, and then I guess we,
It's possible. We could work with it.
is that,
But are you under a time constraint now?
Quite frankly, if we could be out of our building yesterday,
yeah, I bet.
it would not be soon enough. As soon as we can get the funding for the down payment to start the modular building, we will do that. Of course, we still have infrastructure to work with. But it is so critical that we need to be moved as soon as we can get moved.
So, thank you for being with us, and thank you, Mayor, for being with us as well. It's a very compelling project in a lot of ways. It's got, you're not just asking for funds from us, you've got private donors, you've got another municipality contributing property. So it's got a lot of the things that, and obviously a great track record. So I think part of the thing I've wrestled with is just what is the right process to consider requests like this. As compelling as it is, there are, this is a hard business to be in, as you know, and if there are many great organizations in this community that struggle, to keep the doors open, that financially, are kind of living on the edge. And
Stan.
we're going to have a broader discussion this evening about, what can the county do to help, support this sector and really address the needs on a bigger scale and in a really methodical, comprehensive way. So part of me wants to say, let's just do this right now, but part of me also says, what's the right process to consider these kind of requests? Because you're here with us tonight and we appreciate it, and we understand there's some time sensitivity around the consideration, so not everything fits neatly into our usual budget cycles. But on the other hand, there's a lot of other great organizations too that are probably, if we took the time to hear what's going on with their organizations, would have similar stories to tell of facility needs that are really challenging, or other financial reasons that they may be really on the edge of whether they can keep operating or not. And I think we just want to be thoughtful about how we consider our investments in this really important segment. So that's the reason, my suggestion is we want to hear this and make a decision about how we handle these kind of requests, especially when they kind of come in outside of our typical cycles, which is where I think we want to normally invest most of the funds would be through a process where we can hear all the requests that come in for early childhood education, kind of, make sure we're investing them in the most effective way for taxpayers. We want to mostly do it that way, but sometimes things are going to come up from time to time that we have to do outside of those cycles, and we just need to make sure we give a thoughtful approach to making those decisions. So I just wanted to share a few thoughts about just the process for considering the request.
I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate that, but to me, this is a crisis, And maybe because I drive by it every day, maybe I know the need in Black Mountain and Swananoa Valley. I think it, I hear everything you're saying about process and a long-range plan, and we need, if we had a long-range plan, we wouldn't need to keep putting Band-Aids on things. But for now, to me, this is a crisis, and the sooner we can make a decision, they can move along, but hear me when I say, I hear what you're saying.
Well, we are going to talk about that process in about
Right,
30
yeah,
minutes,
yeah,
right? So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner.
I've watched Don and them do what they've done in Black Mountain. That's District 2. That's Ellen and my district. There's a lot of things. We actually put money in a swimming pool, $300,000, which we haven't had to give to it because if it's not done, but once it is, the money's set aside. But, we're looking at, like you said, another deal tonight that's a ton of money. But they're talking about 170 kids. They're talking about similar deal, the modular, that they can take care of different things, and they need to get to work. We don't need to wait 2 weeks or even 4 weeks. I want to make a motion to give these people the money tonight because I trust them. Because Black Mountain has been a very trustworthy area for us. And they may not have to have all of it. They might can do more for less. But they have the people that want to do it. That's the thing. They have the people that want to take care of the Swananoa Valley, Black Mountain, and the kids of that area. So I make a motion that we go ahead and fund them the $200,000 tonight.
And I'll second that. And Rachel's here, but I think there's some money that was set aside for pre-K that we haven't used because of a strange commitment that fell through.
Is that right? Do we know how much it is?
About 80,000.
Okay. Is that 80? Is that a 80 look or a not look?
We have about 80,000 that's sitting in the early childhood budget currently because we budgeted for a full amount for 2 projects that were able to come in at under budget this year because they leveraged NC Pre-K.
Okay.
So that is currently allocated in the budget but not encumbered for any specific project.
I suggest that we move the 80,000 plus add 120,000 to it.
That's your motion?
Yes, I think it is.
Okay.
And I already seconded it.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Further discussion.
Yeah, I just got a couple more things to say. I'm glad that my colleagues have decided to do this way. And again, we know the track record of the group as well as Black Mountain. And this is, we established the priorities of the commission, and one of the priorities was early childhood education and pre-K, and so that message went out there, and y'all heard that. So it's not just an accident that you've come to speak with the commission. You know where the commission stands on this already, and so. But I think it's the track record of the fundraising and the hard work of the people of Black Mountain and Swananoa that gets you this, first and second, and we'll see how everything ends. But I intend to support it. I'm also going to throw in there for discussion, that we fund it as quick as possible, but we fund it also as practically as possible for you guys. So if y'all can help us with the timing of that, we would appreciate that because it's always helpful.
So I will vote for this, but I will say I think this process is wrong. I trust these folks too, but there are many trustworthy organizations that work in this sector, and they are not getting the same consideration as this group is. So just because you can figure out a way, and it's and good for you for doing it, because you should be advocating for your group, and that's exactly what you're doing. But just because you can figure out how to get in front of the county commission at one of the meetings, that should not be the criteria, because there's a lot of great folks in this space, and I think in the long run, we need a process where we can, as we invest further in this, we need to give everyone an equal opportunity to put proposals forward. I think if this proposal were standing next to others, it would compete great, and I'm confident we would support it. And for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and vote for it now. But I just think we have to think about the process so that everyone has a fair chance to make their case for how to invest finite resources in this important need in the community, which hopefully we're going to make a decision later this evening to significantly increase. So thank you again. Any other comments? We will take public comment on this since we're going to vote.
I agree. Go ahead, George. Now, after you.
If Commissioner Fryer's okay with that, is to amend your motion to say $120,000 coming from the contingency. That way we'd have a specific place to take the money from.
Good.
Okay. Is that acceptable?
That's fine, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And what I would like to add to it, I agree, Brownie, on the process. We do need to establish that going forward. But we're at a point in Buncombe County, and I hear this, I've heard this for 2 years now, almost, that I've been on the commission. We have, look, folks, we're past being, we have a terrible situation in Buncombe County when it comes to child care. You know, people tell me when they find out that they're pregnant, a family, they get on the list, one of the lists or every list in the county, and they're not guaranteed then that they can get child care. So I will vote for this, and I agree we need a process, but we also need to take some action now to help alleviate, to eliminate the problems that we have. And I'm all for it, even though it's not in my district. It's in Buncombe County, and it's 170 kids, which is 100 more than you're taking care of now.
Exactly.
And we need that. And look, this means to a lot of families if they can continue to work or not. I know before I retired from the bank, we were losing good employees because of child care and if they had 2 small kids. So we're at a point now, I think it's just common sense. We need to move for this. But I agree, and we'll discuss that later, the process of what we need to do. But on this particular item, I think I will vote for it because we need to move now.
Chime in briefly to say something similar, that I'll also vote for this, but with exactly the same framework of feeling like it's critical that we put processes in place that are clear and transparent, and so community partners know exactly what to expect from the county in terms of commitments and how that process will work. The reality we face right now is that there is a day in and day out crisis, and while in an academic context it may work to think about a process that's sort of in a sterile field, we're in a real world environment where there are folks who would be devastated by the closure of any facility in our community. And so I think it's important, we'll discuss this in a more systematic way soon, but I think it's important that the commission continues to be a resource for centers that are in crisis until there are enough resources in our community to make sure that doesn't happen in the first place. So that's the context that will shape me voting yes on this.
And yes, I'm just going to come in. I'm going to totally support it because it's a crisis. I think the process is there, the track record's there. And I agree with Brownie, I agree with Jasmine, I agree with all. So later on tonight, I want to make sure we go through a process also. So I will strongly support it.
Okay. All right. I think we've telegraphed how this is likely to turn out, but we will take public comment anyway. So, Rachel, yeah.
I checked the budget, and it's actually 79,000 that's available. And so I do not want us to get stuck procedurally and have to come back and put this on a future agenda. So if we could make that 79,000 from the pre-K fund and 121 from contingency,
Okay.
Yeah, 121.
just so that we
Yeah, from contingency.
All right.
don't get stuck in accounting later. Thank you.
Hate
All
to
right.
come back for 1,000.
Could I ask Ms. Hockaday a question?
Sure.
I think, Heather, as you were researching this, there was some question about whether we can do it directly to a nonprofit or if we have to go through an agency like the town. And I think we were getting ready to research that further because we thought we were going to vote on the 20th. But I guess my question to y'all is, if that ends up, in order to be statutorily correct, that we had to actually give the money to the town, which would then give it to you, do y'all have any problem with that? And Mr. Mayor, do you have any problem with that?
I cannot see of any kind of problem.
Okay, all right. We would only do that if we had to meet the statutory requirement, but we want to make sure we're doing everything right. Thank you. Does that meet the requirements you were looking at?
Yes, I think it would.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying that we have to go through the town. I'm just saying that there's a process for funding these types of appropriations, and we'll just make sure that we do it right for Black Mountain's end and
Right.
for the county's end.
So what we're saying is you're going to get the money, we just got to figure out how to do it and make sure we're within the statute.
We will take that money any way we can get it.
All right. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on the motion?
Can I say something?
Sure, and please come up to the mic, please.
I can talk loud.
I know, but they won't hear, the public will not hear you outside of this room unless you do. And so let us know your name and where you live.
I'm Jeannie Sullivan, and I am on the board of Children and Friends. And some aspects that sort of get pushed aside and attention's not paid to them is that more than half of our children are subsidized. That means that a large portion of the families of those children make our city run. And also, it is an essential part of the economy of a town like Black Mountain and Swannanoa. The other aspect is the health and safety of the kids when we close and those parents have to work. You might give some thought to the environment of where they are put. It can be unsafe. It's with older grandparents, perhaps it's with someone that shouldn't be with. But, I mean, not only do we try to educate, but we also have healthy food. They're in a healthy environment. They're cared for. They're loved. They're also disciplined. And those are all things that are just as important to us as the education and getting them ready to go to school and to be vital, working, cooperative, and sustaining citizens and students by the time they get there. So there's another aspect in terms of health and safety and also the economy of Black Mountain. We thank you very, very much. I think another thing that was left out was that we have spent 3 years looking for a building that we could possibly make changes to. 3 solid years with every board member and every realtor and everybody in the county helping us try to find something that was reasonable. And not anything was able to meet code or could be changed for us to use. Also, if most of you could see what we have done over years, and especially Linda Hobson, she ought to have a crown on her head and wings or a halo maybe, for keeping this, this center open. But if you could see what we have to clean up, it has been, the guy that owns that building has not taken care of it. And we have a dentist on the board. He's the one climbing around in the attic space trying to change filters and lights and whatever. We've got to put these children in a safer, healthier, better environment than where they are right now. But we thank you very, very much for being willing to hear us out.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, Commission, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you all for being with us, and thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Okay, next up, public hearing regarding the renaming of streets. And Nate Pennington will explain why we need to rename our streets.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, and members of the public. I'm Nathan Pennington, the planning director here. Basically, this is an exercise, and I've got a couple of slides to make this a little more easier to understand. Basically, E911 address coordination is housed in the planning department, and tonight this is a formal naming exercise. Our subject matter expert, Mila White, is with us tonight. Just wanted to outline that sometimes addressing is not an easy job. And it can be quite controversial, especially when you look to have to propose a name change. So we try to work through those when they come up. We also, in her role, she strives to work with emergency services, utilities, municipalities, and owners and neighbors. And also we work to, if there are instances throughout the county where you run across a confusing or similar sounding name, you look to work with emergency services personnel to come up with something that's a little more pronounceable in case emergency situation arises. That being said, tonight we're looking at two examples. The first I want to show you is a proposal in the Reynolds Mountain area, the new development there in Woodfin. I hope I get these right, but if you change the names tonight, it will avoid confusion, so these are really good examples. The first one, and sometimes they look good on a plat, but when it comes to construction, they're just not going to work. So the first one is DeLille Drive to Harold Place, Marigny Lane to Ava Lane, and my personal favorite, Almanister Street to Terrace Vista Lane. Secondly, the other one before you tonight is to clean up some of the road names in Ridgecrest. There's a lot of ones that just don't make sense, and this is to bring a little more continuity out there. What you'll see here is Warehouse Road, Ridgecrest Drive, and Georgia Avenue sort of ring and go through the property itself. The proposal is to allow Ridgecrest Drive to be the circumferential road here and to rename Georgia to Johnson Spring Court. And then at the very top, you'll see the renaming of a road section there to Wreck Hill Road. The one thing I do want to point out to you in your packet is a small change here. The exhibits I've shown you are correct, just in the ordinance itself. The one that correlates with Woodfin is actually Exhibit C, and the ones that correlate with Ridgecrest that I've just shown you are actually A and B. So that's just a simple change we can take care of in the ordinance itself. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, we're here to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pennington. Is there a motion or questions?
I move approval.
Second.
Anyone from the public who wishes to comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Next up is the personnel ordinance change on annual leave accrual for new hires. And Mr. Wood will share some information before we get started.
What we were looking at, as y'all know, we've had to fill some vacancies recently. And one of them that came to mind is we were hiring the new library director, and that individual is from Kentucky. And we realized then that our current ordinance has an issue for us, and that is it says that if retired employees or new hires from other North Carolina government employers who are within the state retirement system will be eligible for annual leave accrual at rates commensurate with the total years of service in Buncombe County plus North Carolina government employers. And so what that means is if someone was moving from out of state, if they had, for instance, 25 years of experience, then we would, this would not allow us to recognize those 25 years of experience and give them 3 or 4 weeks of vacation. But what we're recommending is you change it to where it doesn't have to be North Carolina experience, it just has to be relevant experience. If we don't do this, we're going to have an impediment in trying to recruit people, particularly if they're from out of state. And you would run into the same problem if you were to hire a county manager from outside the state, which is a distinct possibility that you face. So what we're recommending is that you amend your ordinance, and basically what it would say is the same language, except you would recognize any relevant experience with local governments.
Great. Any questions, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is under public hearings. You need to open a public hearing.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and do that. Any members of the public who wish to comment on the issue? Opening that at 5:53. All right, seeing none, we'll close public hearing at 5:54. And we can't act on this tonight, correct? We just needed to hold a public hearing, and then we can act on it immediately. Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, well, I think this is a very common sense,
Yeah, it is.
common sense proposal to make sure we're recognizing relevant local government experience, whether it's from North Carolina or Tennessee or South Carolina or whatever state that may be coming from. So, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. And now next up is a consideration, well, we're going to have a public hearing, a motion to call a public hearing to amend the personnel ordinance on the sale of annual leave and the date for eligibility determination for longevity pay. This is following up on a previous discussion the commission had on it, but Mr. Wood, would you
That's right.
share a little
Y'all,
more
at the
information?
last meeting, you had agreed that you were going to limit the sale of annual leave to 40 hours per year. What we did not do is determine the effective date of that change. And so what we're recommending, what I've done here is give you a memo that explains it and what we're recommending. And then you call the public hearing, and at the next meeting, we'll have the actual ordinance. Michael Frew has drafted that, and we're reviewing it now. So what we have is the ordinance needs to address when this policy change will become effective. We did discuss this in the manager's advisory group and recommend that you make the following, that you make it effective date of January 15, 2019. There's several reasons for this. Number one, employees may have a lot of annual leave on hand that they want to sell before the new rule takes effect. This would give them time to do so, but it would also spread it, they could spread it over 2 calendar years, which would help them on their state and federal income taxes. So that's why we're recommending that. The determination date for rolling over excess annual leave into sick leave is February 1 currently. And so what we're proposing is if you use January 15 as the cutoff date, that would give us 15 days to process any of those sales before we then hit that determination date for rolling over excess vacation into sick leave. So all of that ties in together. And that way they would not lose the opportunity to sell the time before it would be converted to sick leave. And number 3 is once this deadline for the change to the new policy takes effect on February 1, 2019, an employee could only sell 40 hours in each calendar year. And then employees could sell 40 hours in 2019 under the new policy, even if they had already sold some accumulated time before this new policy takes effect. So in other words, if they sold 80 or 120 hours in 2019, but before January 15, they would still be able to sell another 40 during 2019. We would also like to change the longevity portion of the ordinance. We are not changing the accumulation of it, but what came out in our discussion was that your current policy, as it's written, says that December 1st is the date at which we determine eligibility. The problem is you've been paying it in November. You're supposed, the policy right now says you'll pay it in December. But for whatever reason, the informal policy has been you pay it in November. So what we discussed was, should we go to what's written or should we change what's written to what you've been doing? And I think the general consensus was we should just change your policy to match what we've been doing. And so what we're asking you to do there is make it, the longevity pay would be through November 1 of each year. It would be calculated, and the reason that matters is that in calculating longevity, it's based on your total salary, and that includes any overtime. So what they've actually had to do now is they pay in November, and then if somebody had overtime between November 1 and December 1, we've had to go back and do a supplemental check. So we're trying to get away from that. Now, what this means the first year is that we will base it from here on out as to what you've earned through November 1, not December 1. But after that, it'll be November 1 every year, and that'll be a full year. So that's our recommendation to you, and those would be the two changes that would be in that personnel ordinance at the next meeting for the public hearing.
So can we do this in one motion?
Well, this is just, because all of that will be one ordinance change.
Okay, can I make a stab at it?
Sure.
At a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we change the longevity portion of the ordinance, so the termination date for longevity eligibility will be November 1st of each year, and that the sale of annual leave ordinance effective date be January 15th, 2019.
I may not have explained it. This is,
Can I
we're just
take-
calling the public hearing tonight, and you'll actually hold a public hearing and vote on it
Later?
at November 20th.
Okay, well, that was,
We're going to have a public hearing tonight.
No, we're calling the
Set the
public,
date.
You have to
calling
set
the
the
public hearing so that Lamar will go
That was
and
a good
advertise.
practice.
okay, well, you need to remember that motion, because that was really good. That's
was
as
really
good as
good.
I can ever do.
Lamar, did you get that motion?
Save that thing.
The date for the public hearing you're requesting?
November 20th,
For November.
November 20th.
and that'll give us plenty of time to get it advertised.
Is there a motion to set the public hearing for November 28th?
Go for it, Joe.
Yes.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Yeah, we're just setting a date to have a public hearing about this. Anyone want to comment? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry. Such a great listener.
Okay.
All right, next up is consideration of a resolution regarding funding for early childhood education and development, and Commissioner Jasmine Beach Farrar will start us off on this topic.
Good evening. Before reading the resolution, and Chairman Newman and I are going to tag team on it because it's a bit long, I just want to take a moment to both acknowledge and thank the work that everyone on commission has done on this important topic, especially in the last 18 months, and the opportunity that we've had to work with many different county staff, as well as many community partners, including many who are here this evening. I think this is an issue that as our earlier conversation pointed to, is so close to the hearts of so many in our community. And this resolution was developed in an effort to take a next step in making a commitment of public support and county support around these issues, and also to address some of the issues that came up in our earlier discussion about how to make sure we're doing it in a way that's transparent, very clear to community partners, and creates a rhythm and a cycle that folks can come to expect. So with that, I will go ahead and we'll read the resolution and then have discussion and public comment before it goes to a vote. And I think we have some visitors who are here who've come to join us for this, so welcome. I'll go ahead and get started. Oh, there's Spider-Man. A resolution to create an early childhood education and development fund in Buncombe County. Whereas the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners has established a strategic priority to ensure that every child in Buncombe County has an equal opportunity to thrive during their first 2,000 days, including access to quality early childhood education. Whereas the Board of Commissioners has identified the following goals related to this priority: to collaborate with community leaders and stakeholders for a coordinated system approach, to increase the availability of high-quality early childhood care and education with an emphasis on pre-K programs, to address issues of affordability, both for providers and a sustainable business model and for families and access to care, to support a robust career track in the field of early education with development ladders from entry-level to highly educated, credentialed, seasoned professionals, and to cultivate a system that responds to the needs of families such as those impacted by trauma, poverty, and addiction. And whereas there are an estimated 11,646 children between the ages of 0 and 4 in Buncombe County, yet only approximately 1/3 of these children are enrolled in licensed early childhood education programs. And whereas 46% of children in our community live in poor or low-income homes, and 21% of local children experience food insecurity. Whereas high-quality preschool and pre-K programs are proven to provide measurable short and long-term results for children in the areas of education, health, and future earnings. Whereas high-quality preschool and pre-K programs are also proven to provide measurable short and long-term results for the peers, families, and communities of children served by these programs, including a 13% return on investment for every dollar invested in quality early childhood education. Whereas there is a well-documented local shortage of quality early childhood education programs, and families face many barriers to accessing existing programs, including affordability. Whereas there is a well-documented shortage of qualified teachers and staff in classrooms and centers. And whereas it will require collaboration, innovation, and a significant investment of both public and private funding in order to scale up the current local early childhood education system to meet documented needs.
Therefore, be it resolved that the Buncombe County Commissioners authorize the creation of an early childhood education and development fund for the purpose of annually investing $3.6 million beginning in fiscal year 2020 budget and with an annual increase of 2% in future years. This funding will be allocated to prioritize creating new preschool and new pre-K classrooms to serve more children, implementing workforce development strategies to recruit and retain qualified teachers, supporting strategies for scaling up effective programs, and providing support services for children and families enrolled in preschool and pre-K programs. Instruct county staff to develop a structure for community partners to apply to the fund, develop appropriate mechanisms for the allocation of funds, and propose different models for how funding decisions will be made. And finally, to create an early childhood education subcommittee of the county commission comprised of 3 county commissioners. The committee members will be appointed to serve 2-year terms starting in January of 2019. The purpose of the subcommittee will be to engage with community partners, solicit public input, and make policy and investment recommendations to the commission. All formal decisions on investments and policies must be made by the full commission. All right, so that's the resolution. All right, thank you, but please don't applaud or boo, no matter how much you like or dislike what any of us or other people in the meeting have to say. So that's the resolution. First, let's just see if there's a motion and a second on the resolution.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. We're going to take public comment on the proposal, and but is there any initial discussion from the commission before we take public comment? We can go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate all the work on this. Commissioners that are no longer on this board, this has been at the forefront since I've been on this board, the lack of suitable pre-K education, and we've done studies, we've reached out, and it's just never ending, and roadblocks keep getting thrown in the way. And I welcome this. This is, this is my second to last meeting, and to me it means a tremendous amount to be a part of this discussion. Later on, we're going to hear about an amazing grant from the MacArthur Foundation about jail diversion. And as Judge Hill once said, pre-K is the best jail diversion program there is. So for many, many reasons, I'm thoroughly supportive of this, and I appreciate the commission, the staff that have worked on this, and we have to start somewhere, and I think this is a great start, investment that goes with our priorities.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and open it up to public comment on the motion and the issue. So, yeah, we'll start. Rachel, did you have something you wanted to add before we? go, let's hear from Rachel,
I'd
and then
like
we'll do
to
the
add a
public
few
comment.
remarks from the staff perspective.
Please, thank you.
So
Thank
I'm
you.
Rachel Nygaard, Director of Strategic Partnerships, and our department coordinates community collaboration, community investment, and community engagement, and early childhood education has been a part of that. So I have had the opportunity to work with this board over the past couple of years as we dug into this issue and partnered with the community organizations to research and understand the issue, discuss solutions. And tonight I've got a couple of remarks, even though this resolution came to the board from, prepared by commission. I wanted to follow up Commissioner Belcher on a question that you had posed during the October 2nd meeting when this was up for discussion around community need, and also make a remark around structure of the fund. So regarding community need, the question is, if early childhood education were expanded, would families utilize that? We know that there are about 7,500 children ages birth through age 5 in Buncombe County who are not enrolled in licensed care, but how many of those need care, are looking for care, have attempted to get into care for their kids and not been successful? So that's a tough population to get a lot of detail about, but there are a couple of things that we can look at. One is information from providers or centers, and the other is information from parents or families. So we worked with our community partner nonprofit who's in the room represented tonight, Buncombe Partnership for Children. They have a contract with Buncombe County to do system and professional development and serve as a hub for data collection around early childhood education. And there have been a couple of surveys that they've collected that provide data to support the community need. One is a survey that was completed just over the last week, over the last month, and coming in just over the last week. We know that there are about 118 licensed centers or homes providing child care or early childhood education in Buncombe County, and they were able to make connection with 95 of those, so 80%, to ask about wait lists and ask about demand. And of those that reported wait lists, it's tricky because our system is decentralized. Those wait lists, it's not one master wait list for all families in the community. So a family might put their children on a wait list in one center and also put their children on a wait list in another center. But another tricky thing about it is that some centers cap their waiting lists or don't maintain waiting lists. So it's hard to use waiting list data to get a true picture of need. But let me check my number. We've got more than 2,500 children on waiting lists, in 2,500 waiting list slots for children attempting to access care at those providers that we were able to make connection with through the survey. The second piece I mentioned is family information from parents. Buncombe Partnership for Children leads the Asheville-Buncombe Preschool Planning Collaborative, who did a presentation to the Board of Commissioners during our work session a year ago in September of 2017, and reported some information from a family or parent survey, and that also indicated pretty overwhelming need for care and desire for care. 91% of respondents said they need or want preschool. That survey was specific to the preschool end of the early childhood spectrum. Top reasons for wanting care were getting their kids into supportive learning environments and social environments, but also care so that they could work, go to school. Parents surveyed reported barriers to care being cost and availability, not being able to find a slot or not being able to afford a slot. So data that supports things that we already know to be true from other sources and indicates that there is demand for expansion. Things to keep in mind, do want to point out that while the resolution did a good job speaking to this, it's not just about more slots. Quality of care is important to consider. The workforce aspect is important to consider because we've got to have teachers and professionals to work in those centers. Other considerations are around the sort of custom needs, location of care. We can really drill into that data and look at, like Commissioner Belcher asked, where are the pockets of need, what by zip code or other geography, where do we see need? And then also where do we see need in terms of special needs that children may be presenting in centers, such as maybe babies who are born dependent to opioids or other substances, presenting new needs for providers and centers to respond to. So that's the first piece, which was addressing the community need question. And then there's another piece related to structure of the fund. Just wanted to remark that if directed by commission, county staff has a couple of places that we would turn to get ideas about how a fund could be structured. Buncombe County already administers public funds through organized processes. We do this for aging funds, we do this for criminal justice funds, we do this for affordable housing funds, so we could look at Buncombe County's own structures. We could also look at what we do on a smaller scale within our early childhood investments, that pre-K fund we were talking about earlier in the meeting. And we could also look at other communities across North Carolina and across the nation that are doing this on a larger scale. So just a couple of remarks from the staff perspective before you take public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. All right. Are there members of the public who would like to comment on this item? And we'll start here. Thank you for being with us. Please share your name and where you live.
Can everybody hear me if I say it?
We do need you to kind of speak in the mic, because otherwise we'll hear you, but other people will not.
Come on over. I'm Amy Cantrell, and you are? Who are you?
Mila.
Mila, one of my daughters. And we are from Beloved Asheville's Kids Justice League. So we believe that kids have the power to make a difference. Okay, you want to talk? Okay, we're going to say what we love. What do we love?
Beloved.
Preschool.
Beloved.
Preschool.
Preschool.
Okay. You want to introduce yourself? Okay.
We love preschool.
And so we have a lot of little friends. What is your name?
You want to say your name?
Say your name.
You want to say your name?
Calvin.
Yeah. And your name is?
Alicia.
Awesome. And your name is?
My name is Hollis.
Hollis. And we had some other friends that had to leave early because older siblings had to do homework. But what we know is really important is that investment in these children is a really good investment for the now and the future. And so we want to thank you for prioritizing our children in the ways that you already have. And we are really hopeful that tonight that you will pass a package that will prioritize our children for many, many years to come. Our kids benefit from preschool. We have folks here that are looking right now to try to find a preschool option, and they can't find one, and they're on long waiting lists. And so we know that this makes a big difference. So we have a sign. Do you want to show your sign real quick? Can all the kids? Oh, you want to pick up? Can all our kids help with a sign? Cal, can you go help with a sign? So they made a sign earlier today while we were waiting. And the sign simply says things that they love about preschool or things that they've learned at preschool. Calvin, you want to come hold it? And so some of the things on here is I learned my letters and numbers. I love to be with friends and play on the playground and learn together. Somebody said that it was really important that they got to meet people that they wouldn't know through going to early childhood education. And so I think as parents and kids, we say a resounding yes, that we need more of this in our community. And finally, I'll just say I talked to a friend of mine who's now in high school. Her name's Olive, and I told her about what the kids were doing tonight. And Olive said, preschool, the best years of my life. And so these kids superheroes say invest in more early childhood education, and we thank you for your work and your continued leadership. And we're going to leave so we can have some decorum in the meeting.
Thank you for being here. We loved having the kids here. All right.
That is a tough act to follow. My name is Corey Price. I have lived in Asheville for 8 years, but I'm from the region. I have known I was going to be an early childhood educator since I was 8 years old. I started teaching at the AB Tech Child Care Center that I was part of the process when it closed down, and I watched what happened to the parents and what happened to the staff there. And from there I went to teach in public kindergarten. And I would like to say that early childhood is in a critical condition. We have an opportunity to really step up and prevent a crisis. I am witnessing, I work for a nonprofit called IBME. We're a trauma-informed nonprofit. I spend about 10 hours a week in different public schools, and it is too late by the time they're in kindergarten. We cannot wait for the kids to get there to start having some interactions with them that are on the level of social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development, and that is exactly what high-quality education does. And I really want to commend you for what you did today, and you stood behind a child care center that was in crisis. That actually gives me a seed of hope. I have a building in West Asheville that I want to create a child care center as. We bought it and purchased it with a philanthropist in April, and it has taken us until now to even think about considering an opening date. There's just not funding for opening child care centers. There's a lot of barriers in the way, and I really hope you guys consider to put more money so that we can actually open these child care centers, because there's a lot of people who really want to get behind this. And so thank you very much for hearing some story from the trenches.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jim Barrett. I'm the Executive Director of Pisgah Legal Services. I've been a resident of Buncombe County for 35 years, and I've worked at Pisgah Legal Services for 35 years. So, as you might guess, I'm very much in support of this resolution. I can't tell you how many times we've had clients who wish they could work but couldn't afford to work, and they couldn't afford to stay home. You know, we don't have welfare anymore in this country, and therefore you can't stay home and raise your own kids. You've got to work. And if you have to work and you don't have child care, you're going to leave those kids in an unsafe situation. So this is a very serious problem. It's also an economic development issue. We have a need for good workers. We have a need for educated workers. Folks can't go back to school and get training. They can't get their jobs if they don't have a place to leave their children. So I guess this is pretty obvious, but I thought I should point it out since unfortunately I have a lot of experience with this. We have tried a lot of things to close the achievement gap between low-income children and children of middle income and higher income. And one of the things we've got to try now is early childhood education. The science is behind that it will make a huge difference. It's a great investment. It's going to be pointed out, I'm sure, later on that we don't pay our early childhood education teachers enough, and therefore it's hard for them to make a living in our community, and so that's an issue, and it cries out for government assistance. It's too bad the state hasn't figured that out, but we commend you for figuring it out as Board of Commissioners. I thank you for all that you're doing in the priority areas that you've identified. It is a wonderful place to live, and it's wonderful to have great commissioners who see the needs. I just wanted to point out as well that Pisgah Legal Services has been affected in our employment base. We've lost employees that we were trying to bring here from other counties because they could not find child care. And I know of at least one person who lives in West Asheville who has to drive way down in the south end of the county to have child care and then come to work at Pisgah Legal Services and then repeat that in the after hours. So if we had child care in the right regions, we could save a lot of gas, and our families would have more income for other things like health insurance. By the way, open enrollment starts November 1st. Since there is an audience, a county audience, if you're not insured for health insurance, you can help pay for your child care if you get inexpensive health insurance. So please do that and contact Pisgah Legal Services if you need counseling about how to do it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Caitlin Johnson. I was last here back in June after I was finishing up an internship with Rachel Nygaard, working on a master's degree in early childhood. So I'm happy to be here tonight because I'm no longer in graduate school. I have that degree, and so I'm here more as a citizen because I care about our kids. I work for Buncombe County Schools. I teach early childhood education at Irwin High School. We have a preschool there that I oversee, which many of you came to visit last February, which was a wonderful day. And I want to piggyback real quick just on what Corey said about when students come into Buncombe County schools without having high-quality preschool, it's already too late. Those numbers back that up. In the 2016-17 school year, more than half of our kids, when they entered kindergarten, were scoring below on the benchmark assessments in reading and math. Were scoring below where they should be when they enter kindergarten. So that tells us right there that we've got kids who aren't where the state and the country says that they need to be, and so this fund can absolutely help that. I'm also here tonight to represent my students. A few of them are here tonight as well for the workforce development piece because we have the students who are interested. They get to work with the kids every day and they know the wages aren't great. They know that it's going to be challenging moving forward, but they work with those kids every day and they see what happens when they get to have those connections and make those relationships and watch them grow. So thank you for this and I hope that tonight is a historic moment for early childhood in Buncombe County.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sydney, a student at Irwin High School. Because of the outstanding early childhood program that my school offers, I've had the opportunity to work in a preschool classroom and find that working with young children is my passion. I plan to get my 4-year degree right out of high school, and as soon as I graduate college, I plan to obtain a job as a preschool teacher. I'm here because this development fund would help early childhood education in so many different ways. It would do so much to help people like me go into the field with greater opportunity, especially those who weren't as fortunate to have the experience working at a preschool while they attend high school as we were able to in the program I'm in. This fund would also be amazing in supporting the education of young children and to help them prepare for their future as students and members of our community. With that, I thank you so much for your time and I thank you for all that you've been doing for this. And I really hope that you vote in favor of this fund as this would be a huge milestone for early childhood in our area.
All right, thank you, Sydney. Okay, who's next?
Hi, my name is Catherine Lebeck, and I am here representing 5 Asheville churches. They are St. Eugene's Catholic, St. Paul's Methodist, St. Mark's Lutheran, St. Mary's Episcopal, and the Western North Carolina Baptist Fellowship. For years, several years, members of these congregations have done an awful lot of things together. We've worshiped together, we've studied together, we've served together. Oftentimes that service in the past has been charity work. Over the past few years, we've changed our conversation somewhat to move more toward justice work. And in that effort, we've been down a bunch of rabbit trails trying to figure out what that might mean for our congregation. And over this time frame, we have studied and learned about the importance of high-quality early childhood education in addressing generational poverty. So we have developed and created an initiative called Loving Neighbors. Our vision is the development of programs and ministries to address generational poverty. This goes beyond acts of charity, which typically only address current circumstance and move us into preventing poverty. Our mission is to provide high-quality care and education where children thrive and families flourish, specifically for children of families in poverty. We've moved beyond this commitment to action. Funds have already been allocated to renovate space in one of our churches so that we can assure that we can be licensed to provide full-day care in that church, and construction bids are being sought as we speak. In assessing needs, we've learned that the greatest shortage of care is for infants and toddlers. That's children under 3. Right now, today, in the city of Asheville, there are only 10 five-star centers that accept children under 3. I called every one of those centers yesterday and learned that not one of them has an empty slot for infants and toddlers, and all of them have waiting lists. So in considering availability countywide, you can add 5 more five-star centers that accept infants and toddlers. I did not call them, but expect that if I did, the results would be just as dismal. The lack of availability of high-quality care for our youngest children should be considered a crisis. What else did we learn? We learned that infants and toddlers are the most expensive population to serve, and rightly so, because they are the most vulnerable. And at the same time, the most likely to benefit from high-quality, developmentally appropriate care are families who are living in poverty. Did I talk too long? Sorry.
Your time is up.
So Loving Neighbors would like to open 2 classrooms and add 17 slots to the infant and toddler care available in Asheville City. So
You're-
please fund this initiative.
Yep, all right. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm Beth Maska. I'm the CEO of the YWCA of Asheville. And first of all, I want to thank you for investing in our child care expansion last spring. I'm really proud to say that with your support, we were able to open 4 new classrooms just in late August, and we can serve up to 42 children. So these are 3 to 5-year-old classrooms, and we actually right now have 23 slots available for the 3 to 5-year-olds, and we are actively telling the community that if you want high-quality early child care 3 to 5, to come to the YWCA. So please help us get out the word. Part of that is we're going to have an open house on December 1st, and all of you are invited, as well as the community. We will be celebrating the opening of these classrooms. It's a Saturday afternoon from 1 to 3, and we will be showcasing the classrooms, the renovations that we did with county funds for floors, sink, equipment, all those things that you let us do. And the teachers will be there, and our families will be there, and we will be doing activities. So we're really trying to get the word out. I want to reinforce what this other lady just said about our waiting list. So we have a waiting list for birth to 2.5. We have 168 unduplicated families in the past 3 months have called for early infant care. And 99 of those are private pay and 74 are on vouchers. So this is beyond a crisis for infants to 2.5-year-olds. I want to also raise the point that I've shared with some of you before, that we would not be in this crisis if we were paid at the same rate as other large communities like Mecklenburg County or Wake County. If the YWCA Child Care Center was plopped down in Wake County, our reimbursement rate would bring in another $250,000 per year. And when we did analysis last spring, and the numbers might have shifted slightly, but the difference between child care centers funded in Buncombe County versus Wake County was $5 million impact on our county. So while I ask you to support and invest in this, I hope it's only a bridge for a year or two until they can fix that reimbursement rate, because that would make a huge difference to our community to be paid fairly for our vouchers. And that's a piece of advocacy work that we can all continue to do so that we have an alternative market rate for child care vouchers. I also want to highlight that the lack of affordable childcare is the biggest barrier to women's economic success. And as Jim stated, this is a barrier for women being in the workforce. So it's an economic development issue. And I think you're very far-sighted to look at it holistically and look at ways to expand slots, to improve teacher quality and retention. And I appreciate your interest, your support of the YWCA, and I really hope you support this further investment in our community and our little ones. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, who's next? Anybody else? And after the speaker, could I see, who else would like to speak on this item? Okay.
Two of them.
Okay.
Or
Good afternoon, friends. I'm Leslie Anderson, child advocate. I live in Asheville. Oversight of a fund this size is not to be taken lightly and requires heightened accountability measures. I applaud the proposal in the resolution to include 3 commissioners as part of the fund's oversight committee. In addition to the commissioners, I propose that a group of community representatives join them as advisors. A team of county staff, local early childhood educators and experts, families who are users of these services, and business representatives. With a committee such as this, working with the commissioners, we have the ability to develop a comprehensive, focused, systemic process and plan for the fund and early childhood services generally. To your point earlier on process for early childhood education, investing well will require thoughtful discernment and strategic grants from among many ideas and priorities for the workforce, for children, and for families. A systemic, sequential plan could develop foundational elements essential for transformational success. It would embrace the work of the Asheville Buncombe Preschool Planning Collaborative, help leverage additional funding, and address opportunities and identified barriers to high-quality early care and education for children birth to age 5. I commend you for your public service, for your leadership, for your vision, with gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. All right. Who's next?
Hi, Greg Bourne with Children First Communities and Schools of Buncombe County. Commissioners, thank you so much for all the support that you've given to early childhood over the years and for making it one of your strategic priorities. We think that this is an amazing opportunity before you. Many of you are familiar with our family-friendly affordable Buncombe work, which has outlined the need for investment in early childhood, in housing and transportation to make our community family-friendly and affordable. That's an important goal going forward. It's an aspirational goal for our community, and we're proud of what you're putting forward today. I just want to say that by staking out this ambitious goal for the fund that you have before you, that will help bring and leverage additional dollars. You're sending the message that the county is really in this at a different level than it has been, and I think that will attract new projects, new ideas to you that will end up leveraging additional investments like the one we've seen earlier tonight. And I thank you for this consideration and look forward to moving forward with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Vicki Meath. I wanted to come up here with Greg because I don't have a lot to say, a lot to add to what's already been said. We just wanted to, I'm the Director of Just Economics, and add our voice of support behind this plan and the family-friendly affordable Buncombe plan, and thank you for your work to make this county a more affordable place to live. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Greg and Vicki.
Hello, how are you guys doing this evening? I'm Tamika King, District Manager with Child Care Network. My piece, I definitely want to thank all of you for your work and your attention to this matter. And as you guys were stating earlier regarding the Child Care Center in Black Mountain as being a crisis, what's in front of us right now is a crisis as well. I've been in the early childhood field for a little over 10 years. I came from Wake County, and from Wake County I was in Mecklenburg, and from Mecklenburg I came out here, and I will say that The struggle for staffing, quality staffing, to meet the state requirements for staff has been my biggest struggle. I offer education assistance. Education staff are able to go to school up to 2 years with tuition assistance, free pretty much, disregarding any, with the exception of any other fees that they may have associated with their college education. But even with that, I am pretty much paying for them to go to school. We're paying for them to go to school, and once they accomplish a degree, they're off to work for the state. Whether it's in a public school setting or even accomplishing or achieving their BK license so that they're able to make more money. And that brings me to the issue of not being able to afford to pay them and give the children what it is that they're needing. As for the quality, quality childcare is so much more than materials and nice, classroom materials and what you see and what the environment looks like. Quality childcare has a lot to do with supervision. Everyone is not qualified to supervise a child, and everyone does not meet the qualifications and is not able to do that at 100% expectation of what we would want when we send our children to child care. And that leads us to who we have caring for our children. We talk about, low income, children in poverty. A lot of my teachers are experiencing that today as well. Families on vouchers, a lot of my teachers are represented in that count as well. And so I do what I can to offer assistance, even with education, with childcare tuition, even with the vouchers that they have. But this is definitely a crisis, and it's a call for paying attention to this, and I would hope that whatever plan we come up with once, if the funds are there for the county, that it's very intentional on finding quality teachers, intentional teachers, not babysitters, because it's not what we do, but early educators who are intentional and who are quality and who are meant to be in this field and do what's right by every single child. And I'm not just referring to the pre-K children. It includes our babies, our infants, as you've heard, infant birth through 2 is where the wait list is at. That is where a lot of the need is at, but that is also where a lot of people will come into an interview with me or with one of my directors and say, I can't do it, it's too much work. And so that is one of the things that we need to step up, as a county, and I'm working with my team on it as well, but doing that so that we can better ourselves with providing quality care for children. So thank you for considering that.
Right.
Sorry.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Amy Berry, the Executive Director of Buncombe Partnership for Children, and thanks to all of you for taking the time to grapple with this really important issue and the energy that you've put into it. I applaud the resolution. I want to thank my friends and colleagues in the audience who have stepped up tonight to share their views and help you have a deeper understanding of what the need is. One of the things that I think is most critical as we think about the creation of a fund is an opportunity to really put together a thoughtful plan where we can look at the sustainability of these efforts. We heard a compelling story this evening about the need for expanded childcare in Black Mountain. I support that wholeheartedly. But I think a bigger step towards creating a comprehensive plan will allow us to look at how do we need to prioritize the needs, how can we build how can we build the energy around this work and figure out the best way in order to address the workforce shortage. We can't expand slots. We know we cannot expand slots until we address the workforce shortage. So this resolution talks about the need for development of the workforce, as well as the need for slot expansion and subsidies for families who perhaps don't qualify for a subsidy but are working. So thank you very much for considering this and for your vision.
All right, thank you. All right, who else would like to speak? And who would like to speak after this gentleman? All right, unless somebody indicates they want to speak, this will be our last speaker.
Don't put any pressure on me or anything.
All right, wrap it, tie it all together now.
So, hey, good evening. My name is Keith Arnold. I am a family medicine resident physician working at MAHEC and also have the privilege of working on the board for the Buncombe County Partnership for Children. And I'm just here to speak to emphasize just how important this period is in our children's lives for their overall development. There's been numerous studies that have shown the economics, improved health outcomes, as well as reducing risk in general for our population as kids age to get these services in early and often. And also personally and anecdotally in our Mayheck clinic, we see this issue affecting our families on a daily basis. The crunch is real, the need is also real, and there's downstream effects as well. There was another person that mentioned, nearly a quarter of Buncombe County homes are food insecure. By providing a place for childcare to take place, we are also empowering families and women to go out and earn an income and providing that opportunity. So the other thing that I would like to emphasize is that the immediacy of the effects of this. A lot of people can perceive it as an investment in the future, and while it certainly is investing in the future and a substantial investment at that, I don't think you can underestimate the immediate impacts of the education moving into kindergarten when you have these systems in place and access to structure for that social and emotional development that is so critical in that time. So thank you for all of the work that's gone into this and the consideration, and I hope things go well.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who came out to share your thoughts on this topic with us this evening. All right, so bring it back to the commission. There is a motion and a second. Further discussion from commissioners? Questions or comments? I'll just make one comment. Responding to the comments that Leslie shared with us about the community involvement part, and I certainly think that that's critical, and certainly I think that's, as I've sort of heard from other commissioners and staff about, if we do have additional investments and we look at a process for how we allocate those, because even if we do make this, pretty significant increase in funding, the needs will be far greater than these resources will address. I think we already all know that. So, I think we've had a great process for working with the community over the last couple of years to really explore this issue in depth. And I certainly envision that will continue to be a big part of it. By having the commission subcommittee to kind of really drill down in this deeper than we're sometimes going to have time to do, in a full commission meeting. My sense is that will be mostly about kind of working with the community leaders and people who work in the sector to get their ideas for how to move this process forward. So I just want to echo that. I think those were great comments and really all about what that working group of the commission would be involved in. Mr. Fryer, do you want to comment?
Later.
Okay.
Yep.
Everybody looking over towards me?
Looks like you're in
I can't believe you're all at a loss for
Well, I
words.
mean, yeah. Ow. Yeah, I get it here, then I get it when I get to the house. Thank you for sharing that with me. So, I got a couple things. I mean, as we exhibited earlier in the meeting, every commissioner here has a heart for early childhood education and for those early years with our children. There's no question about that. The resolution itself, I actually like all of it except for two paragraphs. On the second page, the first paragraph that establishes the dollar amount, and the second paragraph, which I just lost. Let me see if I can pull it back up. But the first two paragraphs, the establishing of the $3.6 million, the 1% that, to me, is, as has been said in a lot of times, is a drop in the bucket. I think we did the math on this, and We couldn't meet the need with $49 million. So I think the approach that we were doing earlier, for me, works better. I know some, that Commissioner Newman, that had some conversations earlier, and you and I may not, I may not agree on this. But when individual communities come here and they pour out the need, and they are specific in the ask, then we're able to address that based on the revenue that we have, or that we're willing to stake ourselves out on, like we did tonight. And so I like that way. When I read the first page of the resolution, I support all the whereases that are there, and I won't change that. And I don't think that, I'd say probably all the commissioners up here support that. So, and I mean, we're going to quote Ms. Anderson twice. Ms. Anderson mentioned some things about reaching out to others and the advocacy of that, and leveraging some of additional funding. And we have some great staff that can do that. And I think as we're moving forward in this and we're trying to address this situation, I would like to fully utilize that staff in being able to go out and do these things and bring those needs back to us. I don't think we have to say that we're going to take 1%, and establish that as part of the budget. I don't think we have to do that. We could have the ability to actually spend more than that. We may spend less, but we could have the ability to do more than that. So that's the part that concerns me. Also with the Dogwood Trust Foundation and the sale of Mission, we have some questions that haven't been answered yet. We don't know exactly when the sale is going to come through, when it's coming through. We want to make sure that we're not counting that money. At the same time, if that does go through, then that foundation, I believe, is going to be able to be a big help to Buncombe County when it comes to petitioning for the health needs of our children. I believe that early childhood, pre-K, I think that is going to be not a hard ask, and I believe I'm hopeful that they'll be open to that, and we'll be able to achieve additional funding there. So I'm in support of the process. I'm in support of the collaboration. I'm in support of reaching out to some of the partners that have been here tonight. I'm just not in support of earmarking 1% in a future budget when you look at all the other priorities that we have and the other needs. There's just so many. But I want us to take a really thorough look, controlled process. I thank the commissioners for bringing this forward so that we can actually do that and continue to move forward on this. I also want to mention I was jealous of the commissioners that were able to go to Irwin and see the good work that they're doing out there, and the fun that you guys had, and the great pictures that come back. And I want us to see us continue to expand those relationships. I would love, when we have something like that that's working, I would love to see us invest more dollars in those that we see right now that's working, that can reach out to the community. And as I think one of the ladies said, we have an immediate need right now, and I think that's one way that we can do that is through some of the partnerships that we have with the schools. And I don't think that that's an issue by statute at all, is that we can reach out to the schools, we can help the schools, and we can do that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and but I'm glad for the discussion, and the commitment is there, for me, except for going ahead and earmarking that. I think we've got some things we need to, some other things we can do before we actually have to do that.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else want to comment? We're going to vote on this thing if people want to speak up.
We got a first and a second.
Okay, go ahead, Al.
When I listened to my good friend Leslie Anderson come up,
And Leslie, we all are going to use you, but I think we've been through more wars than everybody up here together over the years. You know, I think of a conversation I had with my mom a few months before she died. And at that time, I think she knew that, you know, things were coming close to the end. And I talked to several people about maybe getting into politics on the commission. And Mom told me something, because I'd taken care of she and Dad for 5 years. And they knew I wouldn't do anything as long as they were around. But she told me something then that as I sit here tonight, I can't help but go back to. She said, son, remember the way we brought you up. And you've always done this, and I hope you will continue to do what you think is right, no matter who you tick off. Sometimes it's going to happen. And when I listen, I think of when my grandson went to kindergarten, and he's doing great now in middle school. But he was fortunate because his grandmom retired before he went to kindergarten. So he had his own private tutor, a 34-year teacher before he went. But after his first day of kindergarten, Adrian was the most frustrated kid I've ever seen when Shirley picked him up and brought him to our house, because he was talking about kids who didn't even know how to answer to their names. They didn't know their colors. They didn't know one-syllable words like cat that he knew. And he could write his name. He knew all this because Grandmom had prepared him. And then when I think of the 8 years I spent on the Asheville City School Board, I served on the second highest funded school district in the state per pupil. But when you look at it today, the achievement gap is wider than it was when I was on the school board. And one of the reasons for that is kids are coming into the school system not prepared. And when you get behind early on, I've seen you don't catch up. So when I look at what we're spending for the jails, what we're spending policing and all that, you know, it brings me back to say now, and I've wrestled with this and even today, but we're at a point, folks, can we afford not to do this? And I know in some cases we're sticking ourselves out on a limb, but we're at a point, this is a crisis, not only in Buncombe County, but all over the country. But I hope we have the guts tonight to do what's right for our community. And I think that's critical. We have got to do, we're losing too many young people. They're falling by the wayside. When I see a 12-year-old kid that's out at 3 in the morning and killed, I know that's another issue. But a lot of these kids, it all goes back. They don't have a foundation to work from. And I think it's some things that we owe to the community. This is why people put us here. This is why they voted for us, to do what's right for the community. And sometimes, boy, and me being a banker, I'm the world's worst at this. I look at the bottom line, what makes sense. But sometimes you have to think more than the bottom line. You have to think of the right thing to do. And this is what I think we've got to think about tonight. And sure, we're going to have a lot of other issues to come up, affordable housing, many others. But I think all of it starts with our kids in preschool. And we've got to do the right thing for our kids. I'll leave it at that.
Can I, to follow up on what, I'm a very happy grandmother. My granddaughter is going to be 17 in December, and she was afforded great childcare from the time both of her parents worked. She has 2 grandmas that are very involved, and so when she went to school, she was prepared. But this is an issue about economics. When you see 2 and 3-year-old little kids that are still smiling, have a twinkle in their eye, and are happy, and then you fast forward to those kids in the 3rd grade who are struggling, it's easy. It's so easy to point the finger for the achievement gap at the schools. But sadly, this is a question of poor children getting to school not prepared, and then the schools have to make it up. And Commissioner White said when kids don't know how to stand in line, when they don't know how to sit still, when they don't know their own names, when they don't know the basics. And this is a need that is pivotal, and like Al said, it may not be popular all the time, but this is our greatest priority. And in a community, if we can't value children and put them at the head of the line, I don't know what it says about us.
Yeah. So I'll be voting for this resolution, and appreciate everyone who came this evening to speak in favor of it. There's a couple points I'd like to make. I don't think the question we're voting on is about how much people love kids or how important folks think it is that we address the needs of kids. I think it's a question of what priority we're ready to put on that, and a question of whether we recognize the crisis that's there. When you hear that 21% of kids in our community don't have enough to eat, that 46% of kids in our community are living in low income and poor homes.
Where's them numbers coming from?
When you hear data like that and you think about the kids whose lives that speaks to, that was an emergency yesterday and it's an emergency today. And when we think about the role, the responsibility, whether you come at that from a faith angle, which as a Christian minister, that's how I come at that in part, or a moral angle, or whether you come at that from a policy angle, or as an educator, the case makes itself any way you come at it. There's decades of research backing this up. That's research at the national level, it's research at the state level in North Carolina, it's research that's been reinforced at the local level. $3.6 million is a lot of money. Yes, we want to think about every single taxpayer dollar wisely and judiciously, but these are not normal investment dollars. There's a 13% return on investment that's been documented for every dollar invested in quality early childhood education. And that return comes in the form of improved educational outcomes, improved earning capacity for children when they enter the workforce, and improved health outcomes for children and their families when they've had access to this kind of resource. I think at the family level, each of us thinks about that we do anything in the world for our kids. But at the community level, we need to think about that too. And we need to make sure we don't just talk the talk, but that we really walk the walk in showing up. And I think Buncombe County can be a community where we don't just talk about kids thriving, but we do everything in our power to make that possible. We're blessed to have an extraordinary community of advocates, extraordinary community of educators, some of the best school systems in the state. So we have a tremendous amount to work with, but one missing piece of the puzzle has been a level of funding that allows people to be the visionaries they're ready to be. And if we're nickel and diming this issue and we only hear requests for funding when people are in crisis, that's not our best. Our children deserve our absolute best, and they deserve visions that stretch for decades and are about longitudinal success, about creating a community where people can truly thrive, and about creating the conditions in a child's life from the time they're born through the end of their life where they can be their best self. And that's what this proposal is about. It's about creating a context where people can be visionaries and kids can thrive, and when we don't have to stop every single conversation partway through and say, we could do that if only the funding were there. It's about Buncombe County stepping up. And I think that what we see in other communities, and I think it will be true here, is that early investment and early public investment attracts other funding. It attracts foundation funding, it attracts private investment funding, because they're not the first ones in, and they see a permanent commitment to children in our community. And folks who've been watching this issue and who know the economics are there, but haven't been sure whether their dollars will be wisely invested, start to see an investment context that makes a whole lot more sense. So yes, it's going to take private and public funding, but we have the opportunity tonight, and I think we have the responsibility and obligation to make the public side of that come first, and to do it at a significant enough level that the the passion that's in our community and the vision that's in the community and the capacity that's in our community can be matched and can be funded, and there can be the fuel to serve our kids in the way they deserve. So I have been tremendously honored to work with fellow commissioners on this issue from the day we were sworn in, especially Commissioner Robert Presley, but everyone on commission. I don't know exactly how our vote will go, but however it goes, we have a lot of work to do to keep supporting kids in our community, and I look forward to that, and I would invite and encourage in a respectful way everyone to seriously consider voting for this proposal.
Okay, I guess it's my time. I'm supportive because I put a motion up earlier for $200,000 for a group that knew what they're doing. But now I'm sitting here looking at a room full of nonprofits that they just want money. Where's the taxpayers? You know, we got AB Tech right now that's got a big problem. You know, wanting to spend all the money over there. We have no money here really to be able to do this with. We have, you know, somebody has to explain to me how you can come up with a number of basically pre-child, okay. The total number, you got 11,646 kids. Where'd that come from? You have 21% of the kids on food, they don't, you know, they food necessity. High quality preschool, but we're looking at zero. From what I'm seeing, we're looking from 0 to 4 years old. That's not preschool, that's babysitting. Plain and simple. Whatever y'all want to think, that's fine, okay? But I was born as an orphan. I was an orphan. I know what it's like to have nothing. I know what it's like to go through school, you know, with nothing. But, you know, physical legal. Hey, set up you a babysitting firm over there so that you can hire who you want to. Because they're attorneys, they can afford to pay a little bit. No problem. But I see you coming in here wanting Buncombe County to take $3.6 million with a 2% increase per year that I'm not going to be for. I will be for some money, but it won't be $3.6 million. Everybody wants something for nothing. And it's the taxpayers' money, and that's the only thing I walked in the door, I said when I walked in the door to be a commissioner, that it's the people's money. It's to us determine certain ways. You know, it goes back to the AB Tech. We don't have the money. We have a county manager now that's really tried to give us a guidance. He says that we don't have the money, you know, to basically keep covering the health care. We don't have the money to keep giving the spiffs to the schools. So now we're looking at $3.6 million that we don't have. So do you think that I'm going to go ask the taxpayer for a penny in taxes to do this? You know, it goes back to the same thing. Ms. Frost said that her and the other grandparents did this and brought their granddaughter up, and she'll be 17 years old. I did the same thing with a grandson that's 29-year-old yesterday. We did the same thing. He was reading before he went to school. It's kind of like, you know, everybody else. We're taking stuff away from the parents. The parents are the ones that should be teaching these kids a little bit before they get to school. As I said, my mother died when I was 7 months old, so my daddy tried to raise us, me and my brother. It was hard to go to school in the mornings when I was in grade school. At 10 years old, he died. So then I shifted around. At 17, I went on my own. But you can make it. It's not always a gift in life that we give to people. I appreciate what's happening out at the schools, at Reynolds and these schools. I appreciate what these kids are trying to do to learn about this. I do. That's the way you do things. But, you know, people that have a building that just want somebody to give them some money to be able to open up a daycare, goes back to the same thing. We give money away the other day to a company called Different Things. Go borrow some money from them. They'll be more than happy to loan you some money for a small business. You're going into a small business. Buncombe County, as long as I'm a commissioner, I'm going to watch the tax dollars. I haven't done a very good job, but I am watching it. You know, I'm the one that brought out what's going on at AB Tech. Wanda stole every dime from AB Tech. We don't have the money, and we got to figure out how to put some money back into it because that's gone. So, you know, Everybody wants to come up with a great thing. We want to come up with a new voting place for $40,000. We want a new attorney for $30,000. Now we want this. This is getting past whatever. I want to support kids, no different than I did with the $200,000 to Black Mountain. That's supporting a group of people that want to do it. Find me a group, not just a group of nonprofits that have a name that want money. They come in here, they give us the thing. We didn't have to vote for that. I put it forward because what they had done with $50,000, they did everything in the world. So, you know, if they want to cut this down to $1 million or something like that, we can have a decision in that. But just trying to hit it at 3.4 million with a percentage increase, we can't do a percentage increase to the schools now. I think they understand that. You know, if you got a $300 million budget and you only come up 2% per year and you're having to go up 4%, you're losing money in the process, so the taxpayer's going to get stuck again. All this is something to stick to taxpayers. So if you're all happy with that, I'm fine with it. But I can't vote for it. I can look at it at $1 million deal. I can look at it in other ways. But this is something that, you know, it's a if. If we do this, it's going to work. If. Well, they've if for years and it hadn't worked yet. You know, looking at the why, what they're saying, you know, the one lady come in here and she'd worked at Wake and Mecklenburg. This is Buncombe County. We're 7th. We're not second, first largest in the areas. You know, 41%, you know, it's, I support the children. I want to support the children, but I want the families to support them first. If you support your children, my daughter supported her son. We supported her son. We made it. You know, it's like I said, it's not, this world is not a gift world. This county is over a $300 million budget. And when you have to go up on taxes just because somebody feels like it's something that they want to do, I'm sorry. I want to do for the kids, but I want to look at the taxpayer and the same thing. Here, Mr. Taxpayer, this is why we're doing, but we're going to do it a little at a time. But this is a full vote, and I will not be voting for it in any way, shape, or form.
Any commissioner hasn't spoken yet who wishes to speak before we vote?
Anybody else want to go? I'll clean up.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. President.
I appreciate what it is. Myself and Jasmine, 18 months ago, started talking about this. We was new commissioners. And listen, there is nobody that's going to support early child care as much as me. Whenever you have 2 kids and you're middle age and you have a pretty busy schedule, you can afford to do some things. But whenever you get old like me and you got grandkids, you look at everything a little bit different then. I'm able to help my grandkids. I'm able to babysit. I'm able to teach them. And I understand, I think as Al said, that my granddaughter's started school and, you know, she is so far ahead of the first graders that she's with. I understand that. And what that comes back to is if these other kids would have had early child care, she would not be so far ahead. She would be right there with them. First 2,000 days, I think, is very important. It is not a daycare. You know, it is child development, early child education. This is tough because what we went through for the last 2 years here with the finance, I wish that we could spend more money. But with what we have coming in here all the time, it's hard. And the burden is, like Commissioner Fryer said, it goes back to the taxpayer. I've got to support this, but I wish that we could really, you know, look at a process, not jump in this. I've talked to 7 or 8 people this week that has called me personally on the telephone, and I've asked them, if we can't do it all, would you be satisfied? And they said, all we want is a commitment that you will start helping. So in saying that, I want to make a commitment that I will start, but I wish we could look at putting this over a 2-year period instead of all at one time.
So Chairman, I got a thought, okay? The last thing this needs to be is where it looks like commissioners are actually against this. So I think if you listen, there's no commissioners that are against doing something that's very concrete with early childhood. So since it's come up, I'm gonna ask if those that made the motion would consider $1 million. You've heard that said it is a very large amount. It is a great step. It's a first step. When you look at commissioners up here, you have to understand that this board, and this is a fourth configuration of boards that I've been a part of up here. You have to understand that this board, each of us speak as individuals. We are all different. And that's why these conversations end up kind of the way they are tonight, is because we also are not afraid to have conversations among each other. So I would like to suggest that we leave everything in the resolution as it is, including the increase of 2%, but that we change the 3.6 million to $1 million, and that we take that step. And then this can always be changed. We'll see how this goes. We'll see, how the committee works. And I would like to make that suggestion. I believe if you will do that tonight we can lock arms in a 7-0 vote with a $1 million investment, which has never been done in Buncombe County. Never been done in Buncombe County. And maybe we may end up increasing it substantially. But it gives us an opportunity to start. It'll bring us together, because we are together on this. We're just different on the execution. So I'd like to make that suggestion, and I'm hopeful that you'll take it.
Could I? I'll start and then we'll, I hear you, Joe, and I don't support that. Based on the vote we took earlier tonight, our current year investment is $950,000, which is good and strong. But that's not enough, and $1 million's not enough. And frankly, 3.6 million's not enough. But 3.6 million is enough to start moving the needle in significant and systemic ways. So I want to have locked arms with y'all whenever there's a chance to. And this is a moment where I think we have a decision before us about how seriously do we take the crisis that our children are in our community. If we were to fund this, if we were to think hypothetically, illustratively, of what it means to fund something at the level of $3.6 million a year, that would mean for the average taxpayer in Buncombe County, $25 increase on their tax bill. I have talked to more people than I can count about this issue, Republicans, Democrats, independents, people who don't vote. And to a person, people have said, what will it take to move the needle on helping children in crisis in our community? The answer is not nickel and diming it. The answer is not investments only when there's a crisis. The answer is significant, permanent investments. So Joe, I hear you. I hear the spirit of it. I take that spirit earnestly. But every single which way I've looked at this issue, it comes back to the same conclusion, which is until there's a significant enough investment of funding, you do not move the needle. You put on Band-Aids, you treat wounds, but you don't move the needle. And this proposal is about Commission stepping into a new chapter, and our community stepping into a new chapter where we're about not just about moving the needle and about starting to put together the resources that can sustain this commitment. So I would not support a reduction in the funding level.
No, I don't either. No, and, you know, when you hear the numbers that we've spent, and maybe Rachel can talk about what, you know what we spent in this budget cycle, almost $1 million, and it's a Band-Aid. And our kids deserve more than a Band-Aid. And so as much as I enjoy our votes of togetherness and locking arms, I can't accept that, because to me it doesn't show the commitment that we hold in our kids.
All right. Any other comments?
Go ahead. No, you go on.
No, I've seen your light on.
No, you did. How do you see my,
And I want to say.
how do you
that-
see my light on? This is really hard, guys.
I want to say that
Okay.
I know all of you believe in this, and so when I don't accept that, it has nothing to do with you not, believing in this. It's just, I think we need something bigger and bolder and show a commitment.
And could I say something here too?
Do you want a quick response, excuse me, on that question, Commissioner Frost? We have about $830,000 currently allocated walking into the meeting this evening in early childhood, with the $121,000 that was added to bring the Children and Friends investment up to $200,000. Our total budget for FY19 is roughly $951,000. That's rounded, so it's just shy of $1 million current.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, you going?
So was that for my benefit?
No, I asked that.
Okay.
Oh,
I asked
okay.
that. Were you thinking it?
I don't know.
All right.
Okay.
Al?
I'd like to add something too. It might be moving away from this just a little, but I think I can't sit here and let this go by. My friend Commissioner Fry mentioned nonprofits and how you come in here. But I will say this, when I look out at the nonprofits in the audience, the people who represent the nonprofits, and I've worked with a lot of you over the years, and school board member and all, and most of you that I know pay taxes just like we do, property taxes. So that's one thing I want to make sure we understand. That I can't sit here and let it go by, I'm sorry, because they do.
Well, Jasmine, 1 cent wherever you're talking at $25, 1 cent in my fire tax was 40 on my house. So, it's there's a difference in taxes in it, the 1%. It could be a lot more on somebody else's. But the fact is, I wanted to try to make it to where we did a better step. This is, these numbers are, I don't know if they're factual or fiction. I don't.
The data that's in the resolution has been vetted by decades of research, and the North Carolina Child is another source. So it's well vetted and documented data.
North Carolina.
NC Child does county level data, which is where the 21% food insecurity and 46% low and poor children living in low income and poor houses come from.
But I've talked to one teacher, and he said that the kids eat breakfast and they eat lunch at school, and then he says on the weekend they send food home with them. So where's that 21%? They're eating. They're not starving.
Should we call a vote?
I don't think we have to call a vote. No, I think we're having.
I'm going to ask if any other commissioners who haven't, any other commissioners who want to speak to the motion.
Okay, so I'm going to speak. I'm going to speak one more time. Okay. So when I'm speaking of $1 million, I'm speaking of an additional $1 million. Is what I'm talking about. When I made that suggestion, that's an additional investment annually, additional $1 million. Now, I don't like this, but I feel like that because of the way the conversation is going, I'm being pushed into a corner. I do not want to not support this. I do believe that we could approach it differently. I do believe, as I mentioned before, that we would not have to commit the 1 cent to it, that we could actually go, even Rachel and the team, and using some of the suggestions, great suggestions that were made tonight, we could address this by determining the amount of money that we would need, and then we could vote accordingly. I'm not going to be pushed into a corner by an unwillingness to adjust the motion to push me into a no vote.
But Joe, I have to agree, add $1 million to it, because we've already got $1 million in the budget, so that's the million you're talking about.
It's $2 million.
So it's $2 million, so.
$2 million.
I could vote for that.
So it's an additional $1 million, which takes it to $2 million. Are we going to divide the board? I'm talking about an additional $1 million. You gave us that information and told us it was $950,000. I'm talking about an additional $1 million. You are $1.95 million.
Okay.
Can we not do that?
I think the people who made the motion have already responded to that question. So is there, appreciate where you're coming from, but I think that question was asked. It's a fair question. I think it was answered.
Do you really appreciate where I'm coming from, Chairman? Do you really?
I'm hearing you. I'm just not agreeing with you.
I mean, but you're not agreeing with me, and you're not agreeing with me for $1.95 million annually. You can't just be stuck on a number simply because it's your resolution.
Yeah. So I think I'll just say why I'm also not supportive. I'm not one of the people who made the motion, but okay. I think we do have lots of data showing this is a significant investment, and that's the reason I don't want to cut any of this off. I want people to be able to say what they think about it until
I agree.
We kind of, everybody's been able to say what they want. But I think we have spent work session after work session. We've really, I think we've done a great job as a commission, regardless of where we all land on this. I think people have taken this issue seriously. We've looked at the data, and the data does show that even a much bigger investment, we said we're going to spend $10 million tonight. You know what we know? It would still not meet the full need, right? So, but I think what Jasmine said about this is it has to be, if we are going to move this process forward, the investment needs to be a significant enough increase that we really are able to scale some things up to make a real difference. We need to get beyond just doing pilot projects. We need to really offer meaningfully greater services to meet the demand in the community, and we know that even this significant investment is far short of what the need is. But I think it will attract private sector investment. I think the Dogwood Trust will absolutely, if that comes to be in existence, which it looks like it's moving full steam ahead to do, I think they could be a significant partner. But if we're not showing it is a top priority, then it's hard for us to go to other community partners and ask them to dig deep if we have not first done so ourselves. We've looked at this really hard. We've had a good process, but I think we need to make this commitment. And there's going to be other tough choices. We always have tough budget choices to make, but we should make this commitment first because it does go to the core of what I think our responsibilities are. This amount of additional funding is less than the tax cut that we did in our last budget, which we did, and hey, I love to provide some tax relief to people. It's a great thing to do, but it is less than that. At a meeting, a couple of commission meetings ago, we committed, after a pretty short discussion, to about $500,000 of additional funding for more police officers in our schools. They do a lot of good. There's a lot of need to make sure our public schools are safe, and we're giving a lot of attention to that. But that's $500,000 of additional money. We spent about 20 minutes talking about it. So this is a significant amount of funding. But if we're not investing in this and making this commitment, then I think we are not following through on taking the steps we really need to do if we're saying this is one of our strategic priorities, which
Well,
we have.
one thing about the strategic priority, I never was brought into the picture. That's normal, so.
I think we
Y'all
voted
didn't
on
know?
it
You
at
did you've done your
meeting.
thing. Again, one more
We
time.
voted on those in a county commission meeting just like this one.
When?
Last December, we voted unanimously to support this as a strategic priority in December of 2017.
Yeah, priorities, but did we say the funding? How much in the funding?
That's.
I don't think so.
This resolution proposes a natural next step after 18 months of very deliberate, intentional work on this issue. So, I think I hold great respect and love, honestly, for everyone on this commission. We may not always like each other, but I always love you every single day. And I prayed a lot about this issue. And,
So have I, sister.
I know. I've prayed a lot, and I haven't prayed for the vote to go any specific way. I prayed that we'd show up, and I think we've shown up.
I think we're showing up.
And I hear you, Joe, but in my view, it's not.
It's
long past time for us to invest.
You can't accept it. That's fine.
$1.95 million is not a major, it's not a big step.
And the difference would be $12.50.
Yeah, but we do that all the time, though, and I understand that. We do it.
I think we're saying the same things. So let's go ahead and
Well,
vote on
actually, if you call the question, you got to take a vote to call the question, so you really.
Everyone's spoken. There's a motion and a second on the table. All in favor? You want to speak to it?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go again.
You need
Go
to.
again.
I mean, you don't know how tough this is on part of the board, that we all want to support this.
Yeah.
And as Joe said, I'm not going to be put on a box. I can see where it is, and I'm going to have to support it. I just wish that there could be a compromise of the 1.9 or the 2 over a 2-year period. This is going to be a big burden on the taxpayer. But with me voting for this, because I'm not going to be put on record that I do not, it is not that, it will be on record that I do not support early child care if I vote.
That's exactly
no.
right.
That's what will be on record. I support it totally. But I want everyone to remember on this board that we're going to have to save $3 million over the next 3 months to offset this. So whenever we're having a meeting.
That's what we're supposed to be
something,
doing.
Somebody out here watching TV tonight is going to be cut because what's going on. We want to support it, but we've been put in a box, and I totally support it.
All right.
So I got one more thing, okay, and I'm going to take the position that that Commissioner Presley just took. I do believe that we have put forth a reasonable solution, and and I go back to Irwin and what they're doing. It's great. I want to put more funding towards things like that. And going forward, we have to be able to change our motion and come together in an agreeable way. When we put something on the agenda, we put it on the agenda for discussion and for vote. When you come and talk, we listen to everything that you say, and it is supposed to influence us, back and forth. That has happened tonight. It has moved the needle for these commissioners. We have to be able to do that going forward. I'm hopeful that we will do that. I do recognize that people have been contacted to come in and speak tonight, and I'm glad that you did come in and speak, and you should. I'm going to encourage you to come in before. If this means something to you year-round, come in and speak often. Bring more information to the table, because we don't need myself or commissioners who have a heart for one thing coming in and putting a resolution and not being flexible on the dollar amount. I'm going to vote for this. I am not pleased that the commission did not compromise on the dollar amount and lock arms on the mission. Going forward, we're going to have to do that every budget time. We're going to have to do that. And I'm hopeful going forward we'll do more of that. But I will be supporting the motion, but I was hopeful that we would be able to support the alternative.
Mr. Presley?
Yeah, just one thing. From Irwin, when we went to Irwin, Reynolds, and TC, let me tell you, my 2 years as a commissioner, that was probably my most enjoyable day that I had. I fell in love with a couple little girls, and
Absolutely.
I mean, what I've seen
Yeah, it was a good
of
visit.
going on there, and with this right here, I hope that we also look at the Inca, Owen, and the TC Robertson of being a priority then, of getting them in that school.
Absolutely.
So if we're going to try to compromise, let's look at them 3 schools first.
All right.
And you were right. It's hard to shut me up sometimes. So I promise you.
We're slow getting started.
I'm sorry.
But you got going.
I'm sorry.
You did
but
great.
but this is it. I'm going to challenge this board. If we're going to do this, we better have some clear communication on it. The people that have the most dollars for advocacy better not be the ones that we're funding. I mean, and I'm just saying that because there are some people out here that are in poorer communities that don't have as big a voice and don't have as big a board that get left out. Now, and people can like that or not like it, but I've been a commissioner long enough to know that's a fact. And so I'm going to encourage them, and I'm going to challenge this board, and I'm going to challenge Rachel and other folks that are doing a good job in the community and reaching out, that we comb this neighborhoods, and we make sure that we find where the needs are, and then we can meet them as we've been doing them in a strategic fashion and not in a crisis fashion. But so, and I'm done, Chairman.
And you ended on a great final note that we
wait a minute,
all agree with.
I want to say one thing. I want to put a plug in for our community engagement team because they know where these pockets are. They're out in the community all over the county.
Well, and we do too.
Yes.
We know where they're at too.
Yep.
Okay, and so this board is accountable for that, and we're to be challenged, and I was supposed to hush, so gavel me or something, let's move on.
Bring you out the chocolate.
Very generous.
Cal.
All in favor of the resolution to create an early childhood education and development fund in Buncombe County, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Thank you all. Thank you all who came out and talked about this very important issue tonight.
Can we take a 10-minute recess?
We're really close
Chairman?
to being done.
I need a recess.
We're almost done.
How close are we to being done, really? Are
We're
we that
really,
close?
we're super close.
All
Well,
right.
actually,
Actually,
it's
we're
gonna be-
not.
We'll take a 5-minute break.
All right, thank you.
We don't have a closed session, do we?
No.
We don't have a closed session, do we?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
We're happy to have continue the conversation.
Oh, I was back there.
Oh, you got some makeup or something. It's on the side of your face right there.
Where?
The ordinance needs to be
On that
changed.
side.
Because it's,
You do right in. Yeah, I want you to go home now.
Shirley be asking me, where you been?
All right.
let's finish this off.
All right, let's reconvene this meeting, please.
Hey, thank you, I'll do that.
Yeah, you make sure you do that.
Have makeup on.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is an update on the Justice Collaboration Grants, and Rachel Nygaard will present this item.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I didn't plan to spend so much time talking with you this evening, and I will,
We love it.
in short order, turn the microphone over to Tiffany,
It's
our
winning. You gonna
Justice
have more
Resource
time.
Coordinator. I'm pausing for the presentation. Here we go. So my name, again, is Rachel Nygaard, and Director of Strategic Partnerships is the role that I have, and that's a department within the county that coordinates community collaborations, investments, and engagement, and justice collaborations are part of that. And I have the privilege of standing at the podium for a celebration. The comment that Commissioner Beach-Ferrara made during the last discussion resonated with me, that early investment, early local investment, can attract outside investment. And so we're here tonight to put before the board 2 grants for consideration to make a vote to accept the grant and to budget those grant funds, totaling $2.3 million for our local justice work. And this brings our total justice collaboration grant portfolio to more than $4 million, about $4.1 million, when we look at our federal dollars and state dollars and foundation dollars coming into Buncombe County to support collaborations, whether Family Justice Center, Sobriety Court, reentry services, and those that we'll talk about tonight. As a reminder, the strategic priority around justice resource support is coordinating the effective and efficient justice system that is equitable and prioritizes both public safety and wellness. And as you will remember when you see this slide, we've put it out before us a lot. This opportunity came our way because of that foundation, that track record. Buncombe County has been at this work for many years and has a portfolio of investments and programs really across the spectrum, from front-end responses, those are things like diversion, and pre-arrest programs, all the way through programs that focus on reentry, sort of that life cycle of justice involvement, which we know is so tied to other priorities for the county and important to the county. I'm taking a moment of privilege to promote the Justice Resource Center. This is one of those programs. This opened 1 year ago. So in October of 2017, we opened the doors, and since then, more than 1,000 people have come through the door. 1,000 unique individuals have come through and accessed and been connected to some kind of service. And those services are listed here. We want to invite you and the public to attend our open house. We're going to have an open house 1-year anniversary celebration on November 7th, which is a Wednesday, from noon to 2. Is that correct? Noon to 2. And so, commissioners, you have received an invitation, and please spread the word so that our staff and the people that we serve in the center can celebrate with you about the good work that's happening. To set the stage, these partnerships are definitely data informed, and because the grant that Tiffany will talk about first, the Safety and Justice Challenge Grant from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, is focused on jail population reduction. We remind ourselves of the jail. We have a 604-bed facility that's operated by the Office of the Sheriff, and most of that population, 381 at this time, are made up of people who are pre-trial. They're awaiting disposition of their case in state court. we've come to you and done work sessions and rolled up our sleeves and looked at data. The one thing that I would like to highlight related to the data is that we have seen growth, particularly in the population of women in the detention facility over the last 3 years. And because of the limited capacity to serve females in the jail, that's one of those things that causes a real crunch in terms of facility capacity to provide service. And finally, I wanted to just remark before we pass to Tiffany, we worked with an outside reviewer of our data as a part of this grant application process who dug into the data from our local jail population and criminal justice court population, and also compared it to what they see nationally. And this gives you a sense of volume. While we have a 604-bed facility, over a year's time, that's more than 11,000 releases from the jail. We have a lot of people who are booked in and booked out within a short period of time, and we have a lot of people who we see over and over again throughout the year. I found the statistics around nearly 30% having 3 or more bookings over that year, and 4 and 5 bookings you can see represented on that screen as well.
Before Tiffany starts, I really want to commend all of you. I remember, I think it was February of 17, Chairman Newman and I met, and Commissioner Whiteside met to talk about, and then this board collaboratively said, we can do better. And you all helped coming up with a vision, because we're great at throwing things out, saying, why can't we do something like the Family Justice Center? And you all took our crazy idea and made it a reality and went far beyond anything anybody ever could have mentioned.
Thank you. I'll comment, and I think Tiffany would agree that standing at the microphone creates a image that it's us doing the work. We've got a team of staff, Kim, who's in the room, and Lee and Julie and Rashida, other staff at the county, and critical community partners who Tiffany will talk through in terms of who participates in the Justice Resource Advisory Council, but people really showing up and having that sort of locked arms, unified commitment to rethink how we approach justice locally, which means wellness and public safety, holding things that are difficult to hold at the same time and figuring out ways to navigate that. So thank you for giving us that chance.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tiffany Hanacho, Justice Resource Coordinator. So I do want to thank you for all the effort you guys have put in the leadership into establishing the Justice Resource Coordinator position, the center, and the Buncombe County Justice Resource Advisory Council. We have been at work over the past year and a half making the wishes and visions of your leadership come true. And our hard work has not gone unnoticed nationally. Were awarded the Safety and Justice Challenge because of the work that we put in over the past year and a half, plus Buncombe County's leadership and diversion efforts decades long. So the Safety and Justice Challenge is a challenge supported by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. They're giving over $100 million to support jurisdictions locally on safely reducing their jail populations. And I think to sustain or talk about the rethinking of jails nationally, we recognize that our jail population has increased triple-fold in the past 2 decades. So there are currently 11 million people nationally admitted to our jails annually. That's about $22.2 billion that goes into funding people that are incarcerated. And as you know, and not unique to us, but most people in our jails are held there pre-trial. So they're awaiting trial and their case has not been disposed of. And that's not unique to us, but that is a national trend. So how do we safely reduce the jail population is one of the key strategies that are the key focus to this initiative. Also in America, most of those pretrial are sitting there for nonviolent offenses. Either they have missed their court appearances in the past, or they cannot bail, post bail, and bond out. Also, the female rate is increasing, and we know that women have unique needs, such as taking care of their children or being there for their family and to support them, and as well as looking at issues that impact women, such as these probation violations that are specific to what males have done historically. And so if women are violating probation, it's because maybe they didn't consider the factors that go into how women engage in the community. And last but not least, our jails have become de facto mental health systems and facilities. And so many of those currently incarcerated do have either a mental illness or a substance abuse issue. This is not unique to Buncombe County. Again, this is a national trend. So with all that work, we have a lot of work to be done. We have partners that come together monthly to talk about how do we get great at creating a more effective and efficient criminal justice system. So the Justice Resource Advisory Council was formed with your support. We signed an MOU in January, and our partners include the Sheriff's Office, Pretrial Services, and ID Bureau. That's the city and county partnership looking at unique individuals in the county and holding that data. Asheville Police Department, the Office of the District Attorney, the Public Defender's Office, as well as somebody representing the local private defense bar, our Chief District Court Judge, as well as our resident Superior Court Judge, Magistrate and Clerk of Court, as well as probation, juvenile justice, and we also have VIA at the table to really understand those impacted by mental health and substance abuse. So we meet monthly along with the support staff of county to help move these initiatives along. And we have noticed that we have a lot of great things working well. One thing that JFA found when we submitted our application and our data to get the funding is that we have a below average incarceration rate in Buncombe County. We also have a track record of leadership, so a lot of the specialty courts and diversion have shown that our leaders are committed to making a more effective and efficient criminal justice system. We have a collaborative going currently with behavioral health providers to work within the criminal justice system, because we recognize that these systems institutionally have been siloed. And so if we have this de facto mental health treatment in the jails, how do we get these systems to work more effectively together? We also do a lot of cross-system work with the Family Justice Center and Deviant Sexual Assault, Housing and Workforce. Of course, you all supporting us and making sure that we're using data to drive decisions. We can improve on some areas, and so that's what the funding will go to, such as our growing jail population trends, the rising number of the women in jails. It has pretty much doubled in the past 7 years. And so also the number of detox protocols that are currently taking place in the jail. And we have to safely detox people off of substances because we don't want them to have adverse effects such as medical complications when they're no longer taking the substances. Our pretrial length of stays have grown as well, and then the number of people who cycle in and out of our jail multiple times, those who are familiar to the jail as well as other community systems. So with that being said, the MacArthur Foundation recognized the work that we've been doing and want to support us in safely reducing our jail population. They've granted us $1.75 million plus leveraging technical assistance from their partners to effectively reduce our jail population over the next 2 years. And so they want to put an emphasis on protecting public safety and strengthening wellness. So what can we do to effectively manage our jail population and safely reduce it? So with the help of the Justice Resource Advisory Council, the staff did not come up with these ideas for how to do it, but essentially the ideas from our local leaders. And we want to at first deflect and arrest at booking. So what does that mean? Our jails are often the first contact people have with entering into the criminal justice system. Law enforcement is their first contact, but the jail is where people start really entering into the system. And so how do we start deflecting safely quickly? Can we provide law enforcement with another option when someone's having a crisis in the community? How do we safely divert people into treatment and not into jails? So making sure that behavioral health systems are coordinating and that we can reinforce treatment as opposed to incarcerating someone. How do we make enhanced pretrial services? I believe they have about 600 people on supervision at any given time, and I'm looking at Kim to fact check. And so how to ensure that her resources are being utilized effectively and that she's supervising those on pretrial release in a safe manner. And then how do we move cases along? I know Rachel talked about the length that someone stays, and we're waiting for the courts to get disposed of. So how do we ensure resources to our court partners, such as the DA's office, prosecution, and the jail in general, to move cases along the system a lot faster, to process people and get their case disposed of in a timely manner. And then I think one thing that we recognize, as well as MacArthur, is that regardless of strategies that we implement, we do want to address racial and ethnic disparities. Our data is not unique, or the disparities that exist in our county is not unique to us. This is a national problem. And so how do we look at our data and our strategies and ensure that we're not adversely putting more disparities with those who are of racial and other racial and ethnic descent? And how do we ensure that the community is engaged, that we talk to people who have lived experience and they can give us that lens, so we're not the professionals prescribing what someone should and needs to do, but really using a more collective impact to understand how can we be more effective and efficient as a system. So these are the strategies that we will implement to safely reduce our jail population. The last treatment court, the last grant that we didn't spend a lot of time on, but is equally as important, is we were funded from the Department of Justice, funding to support our 2 veteran treatment courts. We have 4 treatment court, specialty courts in Buncombe County. Sobriety court is already being funded, and the SOAR court, which is a civil type of court. But this grant will enhance the adult treatment court and veterans treatment court to provide more opportunities for substance abuse treatment, to help staff coordinate the work that's being done, to make sure that we have housing opportunities. Many times people that are in treatment court will want to get stable and have a desire for recovery, but they don't have a stable and supportive environment to do that in. So that would be some of what the funds will be used to, is to ensure supportive housing so people can be in recovery while working to get their case disposed of. These treatment courts are voluntary, so people are signing up because they want to engage and they want a lifestyle of recovery and not recidivism back into our criminal justice system. So that's an overview of the grant money, and we are asking for you, the Board of Commissioners, to vote to accept both of these grants and amend the budget along with that. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. All right, Commissioners, is there and Ms. Hockaday, can we do a motion to accept the grants and a budget amendment in a single motion for each of these 2 items? So 2 motions, but one is to do a budget, like for example, first it would be to accept the budget amendment for the safety and justice, and to accept the grant and the associated budget amendment for the safety and justice challenge grant.
Yes.
Would someone make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to accept the Safety and Justice Challenge Grant and the associated budget amendment. I'll ask if there's any members of the public who wish to comment. And if you have comments on the other item as well, just go ahead and make those too. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Townsend, and I'm a regional organizer with Southerners on New Ground. We have a regional demand across the South to end the system of money bail. Right now, we are making interventions in Atlanta, Nashville, Durham, and Birmingham. over the past 12 months, we've bailed out 130 black mothers across the South that were sitting in local jails because they could not afford their bail. What it sounds like to me is that you have a social safety network that is filling the void to make sure that people don't have to sit in jail and to make sure that people have the resources that they need so that they don't have to return to jail. And it looks like as commissioners, you could go a step farther to help decrease the numbers of folks that are sitting in jail by starting to work with the community and going about talking about how y'all can actually end the cash bail system. We know that the cash bail system criminalizes poor people. So for example, if I get arrested and Jasmine, if you get arrested and both of our bails are set at $10,000, if I don't have $10,000, I'm sitting there to my court date. If you have $10,000, you get to go home with your family. And so we have people in community who have done the research and are looking to provide that social safety net. I will say when I first heard of this, I kind of raised my brow because we're seeing really weak money bail ordinance pass across the country that are actually harming our people. That are just there to make it seem like they're doing something, but it's really not working. These are a lot of times people will have bleeding hearts, and a bleeding heart without a political analysis is very dangerous because what it does is it continues to recreate the systems that oppress us but call them by a different name. And so my ask is that y'all start talking about how to actually end the money bail system in Buncombe County. And Jasmine, this is also my way to extend the olive branch to you. Song has invited you to the table many times, and many times you don't show up. And yes, we do appreciate you financially contributing to our bailouts, but to hear that your organization is also dabbling in criminal justice reform is really hurtful when we've been in community with you for a very long time. And so the ask is not to push those on the margins out and co-op this work, but to come to the table with us and let's talk about it and let's see what else we can do other than this grant. What is the next step for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, not just a year? Because we know $1.7 million is actually not a lot of money. And so my ask is that we take some time to sit down and really challenge the money bail system. I was wrapping up, and you let a lot of people tonight speak over
I
their
told every
3
person when their
minutes.
time is up that their time is up. So thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. All right. Yes, sir.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alan Luis. I live in Henderson County, but I'm a community organizer in the mountains of North Carolina. And I've come just to share my piece. Please excuse, I'm not super great public speaker, but I actually know some of you on the stage, so it's good to see some familiar faces, and I hope that our relationships and your trust in my analysis that I've been building for a while, my political analysis, is heard today. So first, I just want to say that we need to end the process of keeping our people held hostage because they can't afford the $4,000 bail, the $3,000 bail, the $200 bail. Jails and police do not work when people who have access to more money, so rich people. Jails and police don't work when rich people can buy their way to freedom while other folks are stuck in a cage. And so it also doesn't work when the police in our community have proven themselves over and over again to be unfit to protect our community. They proved themselves in 2016 after the killing of Jerry Williams, and they continue to prove themselves as brutalizations from the police happen that are documented and undocumented, that we hear about or that we don't hear about, right? So like the recent brutalization that happened down the street. I don't trust the prisons to keep us safe from criminals, and I know that they're not going to be, my people are not going to be safer in a cage. So this jail should not be the only pathway to support folks to receive mental health services if they have substance needs. jail should not be replicating a house for someone. It should not be replicating the 3 meals that they deserve every day. So the role of the police, and that's not the role of the police or Asheville Detention Center. The solutions are in our community, and the funding needs to be more given to the community, away from pretrial detention. That doesn't mean that we let people out on ankle monitors. That doesn't mean that we let people out and call ICE on them instead. Folks who have needs folks have needs who come to the jail that we actually need to be asking about, instead of criminalizing them from the beginning. Asking, what do you need? Do you need a ride to come back to court? Do you need childcare to come back to court? Do you need a bus ticket to get back to court? And not being stuck in a cage, because that causes, being stuck in a cage could put your housing at risk. You could lose your job just from missing 1 day of work. I can't even call out of work. So I know that 1 day in jail is devastating for a community. It could put your kids at risk, could put your housing at risk, your jobs at risk. And so the ask is really for you all as county commissioners and the folks who are working with this project, to bring the vision of community members all across Buncombe County and the mountains who believe in a vision of a world without police and prisons.
Okay, great, thanks. Anybody else? All right, so we've got a motion and a second, and this is to accept the Safety and Justice Challenge Grant and the associated budget amendment. Further discussion on the motion?
I'd just like to take a moment to reiterate what's been said and commending staff who've worked hard on this, and the vision and collaboration behind it, and the really significant opportunity it represents in our to move the needle on another significant issue in our community. So thank you all for your leadership, and I hope you'll relay to the many team members and collaborators the level of appreciation for that work.
Yeah, I just want to say too, I mean, when I heard that we had gotten this, I mean, there's all this great work that we were doing, regardless of whether something like this would happen. But I think it is, I'm sure these were very competitive processes. This is a major issue that communities across the country are all focusing more attention on, and what can we do to address this at the local level and other levels as well. So it's a great testimony to the work of the county staff and to all of these great community partners, because in many ways the county itself is not in a direct role to make these changes, but by working with public defender, district attorney, sheriff's office, many other organizations, we can do a lot together. So anyway, thank you all for what you're doing. It's really encouraging. We look forward to building on it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we also need a motion to accept the grant for the treatment court and the associated budget amendment.
Make the motion.
Motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Commissioners, we now come to public comment, and we'll ask any members of the public who wish to speak to the commission.
You forget board appointment.
Whoops.
Board appointment.
Yep, skipped right over that.
I'll nominate Christina White for the Board of Adjustment.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agriculture Advisory Board, Amanda Sizemore is up for reappointment.
Yep.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll nominate Kevin McAbee and Kimberly DeChant for Land Conservancy Advisory Board.
I'd like to put Don Yelton. Why is there 2 stars beside?
I was wondering that too.
Yeah, that's
What is it?
That's who they,
That's whose recommendation.
Okay, they have a
Okay.
recommendation.
Oh,
too.
that's who they
From
recommend.
the board.
It's under
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I personally don't think it should be on the agenda with stars. I think that if,
not on the agenda.
it is.
It's on your.
It's on the website too. The asterisks.
I think that, that we need to let the application speak for themselves, and if they want to put that on there, that's fine, but I don't think we should put it on
I
here.
personally disagree because I wouldn't have found out what the recommendation was unless it was there and someone asked.
Well, it ought to be on this, so, I mean, everybody else needs that shot, though, you know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Well, no, it's our decision, but sometimes boards do make recommendations, and I think
I'm
we
with
should,
you on that.
we should
I'm okay.
hear them.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Reason for it.
I just don't want, I want it to look like the decision's already made, because I know it's not, so.
Okay, so there's been a couple different folks mentioned, so we could just go through, and every commissioner is going to get to suggest two, so we could go through, everyone suggests two, and then the top two will be appointed. Are people comfortable
Yep.
with that process? Okay.
I'm fine with that.
And Commissioner Frost, we'll start with you. Go kind of slow so we make sure we get all this down right.
Kevin McAbee and Kimberly DeChant.
Okay. Okay. And Mr. Whitesides?
Kevin and Kimberly.
Okay. Mr. Belcher?
Kimberly DeShant and Don Yelton.
Okay. I will go with McAbee and DeShant.
I'll go with McAbee and DeShant.
And Don Yelton.
Okay. I think McAbee and DeShant had the most votes.
Looks like.
All right. Mountain Area Workforce Development Board, 1 vacancy.
Christy Rising.
All in favor of Christy Rising, please say aye. Aye. All right. The Airport Board has a vacancy. We have two applicants.
You want to poll the board?
I'm sorry, what, Joe?
Carl Riker.
Ricker.
You say Riker, I say Ricker.
I say Ricker now, if you've corrected me. I'll nominate Carl Ricker.
I was only teasing.
1 second, please. I would like to do interviews for this board.
I mean,
Well, I'm for doing an interview.
well, I've got,
If it's just me, well, we can vote, but does anybody else want to do an interview? All these boards are important. There's two good people for this. I don't know, I'd lean towards doing an interview. What are other people's thoughts?
I'll go ahead with Carl.
I'd support an interview.
okay, so we got.
Frost,
Carl.
okay.
Carl.
Okay, I think Carl's got support. We'll go ahead and go with Carl. All right. Fair enough. And Health and Human Services, I nominate David Thompson.
Is that the David Thompson that's with us? Or is that another David? Is that the David Thompson in IT?
No,
No.
it's
Okay.
David Thompson,
No.
Buncombe County Schools.
Worked in the school system. Works there. Is
Yeah.
he still there?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. All in favor of David Thompson, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, we now come to public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment? All right, seeing none, I have a couple of quick announcements. On November 20th at 5 p.m., the county commissioners will hold a regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326, here in downtown Asheville. On December 4th, the county commissioners will have a regular meeting at 200 College Street, room 326, in downtown Asheville. Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.